At an amusement park, the sunburst wheel spins gently in the breeze, with a few balloons floating overhead. Inside the iron cages, wild animals are kept. Among them are large tigers, and someone is sweeping the area outside the iron cages with a warning sign not to approach. Under the hot weather condition, someone is diligently cleaning around the zoo, and that person is our main female character. She smiles quietly to herself, thinking, "Today is truly my lucky day." The heroine recalls the past, thinking that since her senior took a leave, she temporarily became the person in charge of the predator section. Usually, having to take on someone else's job is something she'd dislike, but this case is different. She thinks to herself, with tears of excitement, that she really loves the big cats. She believes that predatory animals always exude a majestic and wild beauty, even a certain allure. For this reason, she has always thought that they are an incredibly ideal existence. Filled with enthusiasm and love, she sweeps the area quickly and then moves to another spot, humming a tune. She believes she made the right choice in becoming an animal trainer. Just being able to see the big cats up close makes her happy. If there were any danger, she doesn't notice that a large, dangerous animal is approaching her. She eventually senses the danger, looks up, and sees the large animal. Her face shows surprise, fear, and panic. She blinks in shock and anxiety, wondering what's happening. She looks around in confusion. Where is this place? The forest, with the wind rustling the leaves and the dazzling sunlight shining through. She is puzzled by the strange scene before her. She was clearly in the zoo enclosure. Did someone move her to the safari area? But the trees here are different from those in the safari section of the zoo. She truly doesn't know why. "Oh, where's my phone?" After saying that, she stretches out to find her phone when she hears a flapping sound. Startled, she wonders, "Flapping?" She utters a confused, and looks at her claws, now turned into bird talons. Looking further, she sees a beak and wonders, "What is this?" Terrified, she flaps her wings in confusion, shouting, "What is this?" Outside, she hears the sound of a stream trickling, wondering how this is possible. She freezes when she sees her reflection in the water as a crow. She thinks to herself, "I don't know if I've been possessed or reincarnated, but have I really turned into a crow?" Shaking with fear, she screams, "Caw caw caw, what the hell is this?" She imagines the beautiful, radiant heroine from romance novels, thinking about her miserable fate of reincarnating into a crow. Others get to be heroines in fantasy romances, so why did she turn into a bird? It's not fair. She cries out, lamenting her unlucky fate. If she had to become an animal, why couldn't she be a cool big cat? Why a crow, the #1 symbol of bad luck among all animals? Lying on a hospital bed, the doctor opposite her looks intently. She says, "Hey, being possessed into this body is not good at all." Startled, she exclaims, "Caw," asking what it means. She cries, tears streaming down, shouting, "I'm a bird? I'm a bird? Doctor?" She stands stunned by the stream, thinking about how to live now. Does she really have to continue living in this body? She thinks about the primary food of crows being corpses, bugs, insects, and rotten carcasses, among other things. But perhaps food is the biggest problem. She thinks, if some deity made her possess this crow, if he appeared before her, she would use her claws to scratch his eyes out. Would he eat those things? Is he crazy? She looks up at the vast sky, feeling forlorn. Still, she can eat seeds or fruits, so it's somewhat fortunate. But seeing nothing to eat nearby, she realizes she has to fly to find food. After thinking it over, she finally decides to spread her wings in the fresh blue sky. With a slight breeze, a few feathers fall. She enjoys soaring in the air, thinking, "I can really fly," the wind blowing gently, woohoo. She feels a sense of freedom. Do birds always live with such feelings? Living like this isn't entirely bad, is it? She is surprised to hear noise from a nearby forest. She flies closer and hears someone talking. "We must quickly find that person who dared to touch one of us." Curious, she thinks, is that a human voice? She has an idea. Wait, a human? Then she suddenly gets an idea, she'll become someone's pet, avoiding the need to find food herself. It's hard to survive, clinging to someone and becoming their pet is better, right? Once decided, she quickly flies toward the sound. Being a bird symbolizing bad luck, she might be chased away. But if she acts cute and performs tricks, it might work. Better than starving, right? Approaching the area, she is delighted. She happily thinks about her next move. She'll immediately rush out and act cute. But behind the leaves are huge, terrifying green monsters, not the beautiful human she imagined. Seeing this, she despairs, cursing fate, thinking there's no dreams or hope in this world. Below, the monsters are talking to each other. "Cheek, have you found him?" "Not on this side." "Cheek, I don't see him either." "Cheek, look above." She turns to leave, tears streaming down her face. These monsters, this fantasy world with orcs, what to do? Monsters appearing at the wrong time, it should have been a handsome hero instead. She thinks, despite this, thanks to them she confirms this isn't Korea or Earth, but a fantasy world. The problem is there are too many works about fantasy worlds with orcs, so she can't tell if she's in a manga or a novel. Glaring angrily, she curses, thankful she can understand the language here. That crazy god has a tiny bit of conscience, huh? But his conscience is minuscule. The savage orcs talk about capturing and eating that human to avenge their kin. Hearing this, she flies off to find the human. If she hears orcs talking, there must be a human nearby. Moreover, he has the power to kill an orc. Determined, she thinks, she must find him before the orcs. Find him and help or warn him. If she does, he might like her, right? She flies to a sparkling place, praying the man is nearby, please appear before her. The next moment, her eyes sparkle when she sees a handsome blonde man nearby. The handsome man is holding his stomach, leaning against a tree. She thinks, being ambushed like this is a bad move. Karmat remembers his wrong choice leading to this terrible outcome. Though it was an opportunity to build a relationship with Lord Phelan, he shouldn't have accepted the hunting invitation so hastily. Karmat recalls Llewellyn's sinister smile, thinking this might all be Llewellyn's plan. Karmat regrets not awakening the royal sacred power, which would have prevented this trap. Feeling anxious about his succession rights, Karmat realizes he was too hasty. Panting, he regrets, thinking if this is the end. Karmat doesn't notice a crow watching him intently. He lowers his head, panting with regret, thinking if this is the end. The crow is surprised to see Karmat. What is this? She recognizes him as someone she's seen before. Suddenly, she caws loudly. Karmat hears the noise and glances over. Seeing a crow behind the bush, he turns and looks intently. Karmat looks at the ominous crow and thinks about the image of crows always bringing bad luck, flying around graves. He thinks about carrion birds, the birds always seen on battlefields or in graveyards, symbols of death. He looks at the nearby crow and wonders to himself, is it waiting for me to die so it can eat my corpse? Karmat breaks into a sweat, gritting his teeth to endure his pain. He wants to chase away the unlucky bird immediately. But Karmat thinks about the danger nearby, with those orcs wandering around. If he makes a sound, they might discover his location. First, he mustn't make a noise and wait for them to pass. Suddenly, the crow caws continuously, caw caw caw, startling and panicking Karmat. He struggles to stand up, intending to stop it and curses the damned bird under his breath. But right after that, the crow flaps its wings and flies into the sky, cawing as it goes. He stops in his tracks, confused and bewildered. Why do the orcs suddenly hear the crows cawing? One of the orcs points to the sky and says, "Cheek, cheek, a crow. Cheek, maybe that crow is near the corpse of that guy. Cheek, let's follow it." The wind rustles through the trees, and Karmat staggers forward, clutching his stomach. He glances back, seeing the orcs are moving away. Karmat wonders about the crow's actions. The crow isn't waiting to eat his corpse. It flies off, leading the orcs away from Karmat's hiding spot. She glances back, seeing the orcs are following her lead. She silently rejoices, good, those stupid monsters are following me. She looks into the distance, thinking, that person earlier, even if I don't remember seeing him in a game or novel, his face looks very familiar. She recalls Karmat's handsome, distinguished image and is determined to save him. To know where this is, she must save his life. She thinks of Karmat and covers her mouth, feeling bashful. Ahem, it's absolutely not because I'm infatuated with him. She looks at the orcs and thinks she can't let the only clue in this world die a meaningless death at their hands. So, she helps. One of the orcs wonders, Cheek, where is that crow flying to? Another one responds, who knows, Cheek, just keep following it. Finally, she leads them to a large cliff. By now, it should be far enough. The orcs are fooled, bewildered as they look at the cliff. She walks away, hearing them argue loudly below, who said to chase the crow? Huh? Now we can't find that human anymore. She smirks in disdain at them. She joyfully flies back, thinking, let's go back and find him. Returning to the old spot, she doesn't see anyone. She thinks, as expected, he has already hidden somewhere else. She looks down at the grass, seeing bloodstains, and contemplating. But these signs suggest he lost a lot of blood. She sees a trail of blood leading away, panicking as she sweats and feels scared. The blood loss is significant enough to leave a trail on his escape route. In this situation, she should be more worried about the blood loss than the orcs. She thinks about helping Karmat with his wound but then feels sad because she isn't knowledgeable about botany. She is sure she needs to find herbs to stop his bleeding, but she isn't an expert in plants. Her expertise is in animals. She looks down at the grass, distinguishing between edible and non-edible plants. She feels relieved, but then worried, thinking, luckily, my crow instincts can help me distinguish certain plants. But will the herbs I find be useful for humans? What if they're only for animals? After some thought, she shakes her head repeatedly. Never mind, I'll find something first and figure it out later. Instead of thinking about this and that, it's better to try something first. By the clear spring, Kermit is using a cloth to clean himself, holding his waist and breathing heavily. He presses hard on his side, thinking, luckily, there's a place to clean the wound nearby. Water can mask the smell of blood and my scent, so at least the orcs won't track me here for now. Kermit doesn't say a word, looking into distance, deep in thought. It is clearly a coincidence, but if that crow hadn't lured the orcs away from him, he'd have to fight with his injured body. He'd probably be dead by now. Kermit, tired and thoughtful, realizes that the unlucky crow has saved his life. Thanks to the bird symbolizing death, he survives. How ironic. Kermit, after thinking about his fortune in being saved, contemplates the next steps for survival. He realizes luck won't come his way again. He must find a way to survive on his own. Leaves rustle in the wind, and a piece of grass lands on Kermit's head. Puzzled, he quickly reaches up and pulls it down, wondering what it is. He looks at the grass in his hand and identifies it as an herb used to stop bleeding. Kermit looks up in disbelief and then sees the crow that saved him earlier flapping its wings and cawing. He can't believe his eyes. How could a bird be so intelligent? Is it the familiar of someone? Is it a birdman or a shape-shifting dragon? Kermit dismisses these thoughts, realizing the possibilities are slim. No one he knows possesses such a familiar, and birdmen aren't fond of humans. He tears a piece of cloth, wraps it around his wound, and ties it tightly. Dragons are the most likely, but they aren't known for helping humans so actively. As he puts his shirt back on, he glances at the crow, still curious about why it helped him. Suddenly, 2 fruits fall to the ground nearby. The crow lands close to Kermit, cawing excitedly. Kermit asks, "Is this for me to eat?" The crow caws happily, seeming to say yes. Kermit picks up the fruits and eats them, savoring the sweet taste that momentarily lets him forget his current predicament. The crow reflects on the time since they first met. They have been living an unusual life together. The crow finds fruits and herbs for Kermit and warns him of danger, while Kermit catches fish or rabbits and shares them. The crow, eating a fish and shedding tears of joy, thinks about how it no longer has to eat insects. The crow flies to Kermit, happy they are supporting each other. Kermit smiles, calling the crow Raynell. When he extends his arm, the crow lands on it, and he names her Reno. Thinking back to their first meeting, he remembers how cautious he was, but now he calls her name with affection. Reno, feeling overwhelmed, compares the moment to an idol calling her name. She playfully scolds Kermit for being dangerously handsome, making her heart race. Kermit, amused, strokes her head, making her melt with delight. Kermit reflects on his situation, surrounded by flatterers and traitors, finding comfort in the crow's presence. He considers the new feeling of wanting to live with her instead of returning to the palace. However, he knows he can't abandon his duty. He must return to the palace to avenge the knights who died protecting him and save his people from suffering under Leolin's rule. Kermit angrily thought, even if it's for the knights who sacrificed themselves to protect me, or for the thousands of common people who will suffer if Leolin takes power. The fire in Kermit's heart blazed fiercely, and he resolved, I must return to the royal palace. But if I go back like this, I'll face the same troubles again. Leolin has likely spread the news that I am either dead or missing and has already seized the vacant position. Kermit pondered, indeed, if I can't awaken my power, it will be a problem. He thought about that energy, proof that he was a true member of the royal family, the power to transform into a wolf. In the afternoon sunset, on the cliff, the wind blew gently, and the air was refreshingly cool. Reno spread his wings and flew through the sky, searching for herbs for Kermit. I should gather more herbs before it gets dark because it'll be hard to find them in the dark. Reno stopped abruptly, noticing something below. Something sparkling caught his attention. What's that shining over there? Reno flew closer and saw clearly that the sparkling object was a gemstone. Reno thought, how strange, finding a gemstone in this forest out of nowhere. Well, it's not edible anyway. I should keep looking for herbs. But before she could leave, a sudden blue light shone directly at Raynell, causing her to fall backward. In her panic, she suddenly remembered something. Ah, right. Crows love shiny objects. This darn instinct. Raynell screamed in pain, ugh, ah. Raynell lay on the grass, playing with the sparkling gemstone, feeling dissatisfied. She thought, it's so embarrassing that I can't overcome the crow's instinct like this. I am human, a primate, a human both outside and inside. A smart human. Give me back my dignity. Raynell stared at the gemstone, deep in thought. Wait a minute, I've seen this gemstone somewhere before. She suddenly remembered. I remember now, this is not a gemstone but a type of fruit called Coven Rock. It possesses an incredibly special ability to awaken characters. You can only obtain it once per game, and it can change the ending path depending on the character who uses it. It's a very important item. Moreover, if you give this fruit to a character with a low affection level, and they can't withstand its side effects, it can lead to their death, causing the player character to be accused of murder. Reno wailed, recalling the past. Because of this ridiculous feature, there were countless times I wanted to throw my phone away. She trembled and cried continuously because of this game. Oh God, ending up behind bars again, this stupid game, I'm not playing anymore. She thought to herself, of course, I'm Korean, so there's nothing I can do about it. Even though I said that, I still completed the character's power. How could I not remember such a specially programmed game right away? The reason is very simple, because I played this game 3 years ago. Reno's tears streamed down as she screamed, caw, caw, and angrily cursed, you darn God, did you plan this to mess with me? Why did you push me into a game meant for girls? I even forgot my name and barely remember the content. After a moment of frustration, she suddenly remembered that male character and thought, luckily, I met Carmit. It's true that in every bad situation, there is a silver lining. I discovered the truth about the person I saved. Raynell recalled Carmit's handsome character. He was a supporting character among those who could be romanced, and he was also the emperor of this empire. Reno remembered that at this moment, Carmit was injured and being pursued. She realized she had arrived in this world when Carmit was still the first prince. At this time, Carmit had not yet awakened his power and was facing many difficulties. Returning to the present, Reno glanced down and stared at the sparkling blue gemstone below, thinking, perhaps I play a role in triggering his awakening. Reno quickly grabbed the magical fruit with her claws, intending to bring it to Carmit. I need to give this to him immediately. Can I find him? If I use Carmit's power after he becomes emperor, can I find a way to return to my previous world? Carmit looked bewilderedly at the fruit in his hand, given to him by the crow. Raynell, how did you find this? Carmit doubted the crow's identity. Coven Rock was a fruit even the emperor couldn't find. Could this crow be the leader of the bird clan or a dragon? Raynell happily cawed, aren't I amazing? Praise me. Carmit remained silent, deep in thought. If I eat this fruit, my fate will change. What should I do? He considered the two possibilities, either it would help him escape his desperate situation, or he would die because he couldn't withstand its power. Carmit bowed his head in a frightening silence, then lifted his head, mentally prepared. He called Raynell and smiled, if I die, you must live freely. With that, Carmit bit into the fruit. Suddenly, something in front of Raynell began to shine. It was Carmit, radiating a dazzling golden light. Raynell watched in admiration, oh wow, that's spectacular. Raynell remembered that in the original game, Carmit had already awakened. Giving him the Coven Rock would cause it to transform into pheromones, making him incredibly alluring. Thinking of this, Raynell blushed, of course, I really like that. No, not like that. Looking at Carmit's handsome, shining face, Raynell thought, now, it feels like I'm being overwhelmed by pure power. Raynell looked up at the vast, distant sky, noticing how other animals were fleeing from this overpowering presence. It was clear that his awakening would make him an emperor, truly extraordinary. Raynell watched intently as something rustled nearby. Menacing beasts with sharp fangs appeared, growling, gru. They looked terrifying. Raynell froze, thinking that these uninvited guests were attracted by the power. She covered her eyes against Carmit's dazzling light and cursed the beast silently, you damned imposter beasts. Don't you know not to attack when a magic boy is transforming? Why are you showing up when he's awakening? Raynell pondered, hesitating, maybe I should hide somewhere for a while? After all, Carmit's successful awakening is already predetermined. He doesn't need me here right now. She suddenly remembered Carmit's earlier words, if I die, you must live freely. Reflecting on his words, she thought, why did he say that? There's no other choice. The smart crow made her decision and flew closer to the beasts, cawing and shouting, charge in, you little brats. Today, you die, or I die. The beasts continued to growl menacingly, making her tear up. It's come to this, so I have no choice but to hold them off until Carmit finishes his awakening. Suddenly, a golden light flashed around Carmit's body, like an electric running through him. He gritted his teeth, screaming in pain, it hurt so much. The electric current continued to strike Carmit, causing him even more pain. The pain was so intense that he wanted to die immediately, but he thought to himself, I have to endure, I have to resist it. Karmat remembered the words of the soldier, "Please run, your highness. We will be the bait for them. You must survive at any cost. You must live. Show everyone that our deaths were not in vain." Remembering those words, Karmat shouted with determination, "I can't die like this." When the gods created this land, the divine creatures, who were meant to protect the gods, began to guide the living beings on the land created by the gods. Among them, the wolf shared its power with the beings that had a similar form to the gods. These beings were called humans, carrying the blood of the gods, possessing the ability to lead the pack wisely. Karmat transformed into a large golden wolf, moving towards the nearby monsters. Raynell, in pain and covered in wounds, glanced at Karmat and thought, "Ah, Karmat has finally awakened." Karmat bared his sharp fangs and bit into one of the monsters. The remaining monsters, seeing this, were terrified. Raynell, exhausted, closed her eyes, feeling relieved, thinking, "Maybe now I can sleep a little." Seeing Raynell collapse, Karmat quickly caught her, shouting, "Raynell." Karmat, trembling, held Raynell in his arms and said, "I told you to live freely." He couldn't understand Raynell's action of protecting him with her own body. The wise bird was so unexpectedly foolish to protect him. Karmat gently stroked Raynell, thinking, "If you had left me, you wouldn't have been injured like this." Grinding his teeth in frustration, Karmat thought, "I hate this feeling of helplessness." He walked on the grass, creating a rustling sound, and said, "Just wait a bit, Raynell. I will find a way to heal your wounds. I will heal you quickly." Raynell seemed to wake up from a daze, seeing everything around her dark and feeling pain. She moaned softly, "It hurts." Seeing two figures in front of her, she thought, "My whole body hurts, I can't see clearly." Karmat told the person beside him, "This child that I love dearly is badly injured. Please take care of her for me." The person beside him nodded and agreed to Karmat's request, "Yes, I understand." Suddenly, a shimmering green light surrounded Raynell, making her moan softly, "What's happening?" The light enveloped her, surprising her. "What's this?" Raynell panicked, struggling to escape, continuously squawking, "What's this? Where am I?" Karmat, seeing her distress, called out, "Raynell, calm down." Raynell quickly flew to perch on Karmat's arm. He sighed, gently comforting her, There, you're safe now." Karmat slowly explained to Raynell, "This is the residence of a knight I trust very much, so you can rest assured." He continued, pointing to the person beside him, "This is the priest who healed you." The priest smiled, "Haha, living to this age and still having to treat a bird, if it weren't for the prince, I would have refused. So unlucky." Raynell turned to look at her shiny body, thinking, "My body doesn't hurt anymore. This must be the divine power I've heard about. I'm finally experiencing it." She bowed respectfully to Karmat, "Then I shall take my leave, your highness." Karmat smiled, "Thank you. I will repay you later." The priest then left, the door closing with a click. Karmat looked at Raynell thoughtfully, then closed his eyes and sighed in exhaustion. He then bent down, hugging Raynell tightly, and kissed her gently. "Thank goodness you're okay," he said, kissing her, making her face turn bright red. He gently confessed, "I was so scared, afraid that you wouldn't wake up again." Raynell's heart was filled with warmth and joy, thinking, "He's making my heart burst with happiness." Her face turned even redder as she thought about Karmat kissing her. "I'm an FA, I'm not immune to such actions. Saving people but not saving me as a crow?" She cried, realizing her body was still that of a crow. "To receive love from a handsome man while being a bird, what can I do? I'm just a bird, I can't surpass my animal form." Raynell imagined Karmat marrying another woman and felt her spirit sink. Moreover, he will marry another woman eventually. "Oh no, just thinking about it makes me angry. If I'm alone, others should be too." She spread her wings and screamed, "Being a couple is hell, being alone is heaven." Karmat, seeing her outburst, asked, "Oh no, did I hold you too tightly?" Raynell cried, "If I could take over someone's body, why not the female leads?" Karmat didn't understand her feelings, thinking it was because he held her too tightly. He continued to stroke her, I'm sorry. Next time, I'll hold you gently." Raynell thought, if my life were a webtoon, the title would be, Suddenly, I Became a Black Crow. Karmat continued to explain, "I was worried about you, so I unconsciously held you too tightly." He remembered their first meeting when Raynell saved his life by giving him herbs to heal his wounds and helped him many times, ultimately helping Karmat gain the power to transform into a wolf and awaken. "You saved me," he said, recalling her helping him. "You, who did so much for me, got hurt protecting me. I feel both grateful and guilty. I don't know when I'll be able to repay this debt, but I promise you one thing," he said, looking at Raynell tenderly, "no matter what happens, I will never treat you carelessly." Hearing this, Raynell blushed and thought, "Oh, how sweet." She flew up to Karmit's shoulder, thinking, I can't bear to see him with anyone else. Karmit smiled, ha ha, so you've forgiven me? Rionel's eyes burned with determination, thinking, if Karmit has someone else, I must drive her away. Being alone is heaven, being a couple is hell. Karmit, sensing the scary atmosphere, broke into a cold sweat. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door, knock, knock, and a voice interrupted the tense atmosphere. Your Highness, I apologize for the intrusion. Karmit responded, come in. The door opened slightly, and a foot appeared. Galenose stood respectfully and greeted Karmit. Sir Galenose greets your Highness. Galenose smiled and said, it's a relief that you are safe. Karmit replied, it's been a while, Galenose. I feel sorry to trouble you like this. Raynell, on Karmit's shoulder, observed the person in front of them, thinking, that must be Winster del Galenose. He's surely one of the target characters. I think he's a knight. She pondered, what kind of person is Galenose? I don't remember much. Galenose bowed and said, it's no trouble at all. It's only natural for a knight to care for the prince. Then, Galenose knelt and continued, on the contrary, I am a sinner for not being by your side to protect you during difficult times. My sin is so great it cannot be measured. Galenose gritted his teeth and said, I will atone for my sin with my death, shocking both Karmit and Raynell. Raynell held her head, thinking, no, a handsome man should not die. When I permit, I will absolutely protect. Karmit quickly kicked Garlino's sword down, causing it to clang onto the ground. Karmit sighed and spoke. Loyalty is good, but don't act so extreme. Raynell looked at Karmit with admiration. Karmit, you nailed it. Indeed, you didn't want Garlinos to go out in such a pathetic way, right? Garlinos stammered, looking up. Your Highness, but... Karmit closed his eyes, took a breath, and explained clearly to Garlinos so he wouldn't blame himself. Garlinos, you don't need to blame yourself like this. When I was missing, you had to leave because of the mission from His Majesty the Emperor. Karmit extended his hand to help Garlinos stand up, saying, just the fact that you didn't ally with Llewellyn already makes me grateful. Garlinos looked at the prince in bewilderment. Karmit, seeing this, said, if you still feel guilty, I want you to promise me something. Karmit expressed his wish to Garlinos, making his eyes light up. I want you to become my sword, to stay by my side, to protect me, Winster del Garlinos. After a few seconds of contemplation, Garlinos picked up the sword from the floor, held it up to his forehead, and made a pledge. Beside Karmit, I vow to become a sword, a shield for His Highness. I pledge to always be by your side and protect you, even if it costs my life. Raynell suddenly remembered something. I remember now, in the original story, Garlinos is an absolutely loyal knight to Emperor Karmit, never betraying him regardless of what happens. Karmit asked Garlinos, even if it costs your life? Even though I have not awakened the power of the royal family? Garlinos replied, of course. Karmit took the sword in his hand. Thank you for being by my side, thank you for still following someone like me, Garlinos. Raynell flew to Karmit's side while wondering. But why doesn't he reveal that he has already awakened his power? I'm so curious, but now that I'm in the form of a crow, I can't ask. I'll find out eventually. Outside, the sky was overcast, and Garlinos spoke up. Your Highness, if it's not too bold, may I ask how you returned safely? Garlinos said. As far as I know, you were seriously injured. Karmit replied. Ah, I was about to introduce you. Karmit extended his hand and called. Raynell, come here. Raynell obediently flew over and perched on Karmit's arm, cawing. Did you call me? Garlinos, sweating in confusion, said. A crow? Garlinos recalled seeing Raynell perched on Karmit's shoulder earlier and wondered. Your Highness, why do you let a black bird stay with you? Understanding the confusion, Karmit explained. I know what you're thinking, Garlinos. Karmit stroked Rionell's head and explained clearly. But this little one led the orcs away while they were hunting for me and also found medicinal herbs for me. Additionally, it has helped me multiple times. Raynell, feeling shy, cawed. See, I'm awesome. Garmeut said. If it weren't for Raynell, you wouldn't see me now. Garlinos, gritting his teeth, responded. How could that be, Your Highness? Karmit always shows himself as a perfect individual, with outstanding qualities, always caring for his subordinates, never letting anyone see his weaknesses. If there was any flaw, it was being pushed into a life-threatening situation by the awakened third Prince Llewellyn. Seeing Karmit gently pamper Raynell, Garlinos wondered. Such a prince, yet he smiles so gently at a bird symbolizing death? Closing his eyes and clenching his teeth, Garlinos thought. Indeed, Your Highness. Then he opened his eyes, filled with murderous intent, thinking. Is an unusual person. Garlinos' eyes burned with a fierce, frightening light. Such a prince, even with a crow, must have seen its potential and thus kept it by his side as a knight. I must strive harder. Raynell, seeing Garlinos looking at her with a fierce gaze, was puzzled. What's this? Why is he looking at me like that? Indeed, prejudice doesn't vanish overnight, the road ahead for me is still long. At that moment, Carmet spoke. Now, I've introduced everything. I have some questions for you, Garlinos. First, I want to hear the current situation in the capital. Garlinos confirmed. Your Highness means the situation after you went missing, right? Carmet responded. Yes. So I have been declared missing? Garlinos answered. Yes, the bodies of the knights were found, but your body was not, so it was handled as a missing case. A search party was formed to look for you, but, Garmeut said. I'm sure they were all under Llewellyn's influence. Garlinos recounted everything to Carmet. Yes, the third prince said, how can a younger brother stay still when his older brother is missing, and expressed his concerns to His Majesty the Emperor. Carmet, listening, sneered. Ridiculous. Acting so over the top is no different from admitting he did it himself. Garlinos added. But His Majesty the Emperor accepted that request. Carmet replied. Of course, he did. Father only thinks about passing the throne to the living. Raynell, hearing this, was terrified, thinking. Wow, this conversation is so brutal. Is this the palace intrigue I've heard about? Even the Emperor, who has the highest power, has brothers killing each other like this? Raynell pitied Carmet, thinking about how much he had suffered. She snuggled up to him as if trying to comfort him. Carmet called Raynell and gently stroked her, asking, Are you comforting me? Carmet reassured Raynell. Don't worry, Raynell. I'm fine because I've prepared myself. Instead, I don't intend to ruin the opportunity you've worked hard to give me. Carmet stood up, slammed his hand on the table, and ordered. Garlinos, go to the capital and report to Father that I'm still alive. Garlinos saw Carmet carefully holding Raynell and wondered. Your Highness cherishes the crow that much? Garlinos also voiced his concern. Is it okay to do that? If the third prince knows you're still alive. Carmet stroked Raynell's head, his eyes filled with menace, and continued Garlinos' sentence. Surely, he will plot something insidious, but he won't act immediately. If His Majesty the Emperor is still worried about me, he won't dare show his hatred openly. For now, he will remain silent and wait for the opportunity. Carmet's eyes were full of killing intent, thinking. Moreover, even if he does attack me, it doesn't matter. I wouldn't mind him doing so. In the bright morning sunlight at a beautiful flower garden, Raynell stood on a wooden box, watching intently as two people loaded goods onto a carriage. She looked up, her eyes sparkling with thoughts. Finally, I'm going to the palace. Raynell imagined the vast, majestic, and splendid palace, thinking about how she had only seen it in illustrations before. It must be magnificent, right? But in the next moment, Raynell changed her attitude, thinking. But I need to pull myself together, stay alert because that's where Carmet's enemies are. In times like this, it's fortunate I'm not in human form. If I were human, Carmet would surely be in a difficult position, possibly criticized for bringing an unknown commoner, maybe even accused of using a woman the prince brought back as a bargaining chip or hostage. Raynell felt relieved. So now, existing as the prince's special pet is safer for me. Carmet came out, seeing Raynell there, said, Raynell, you're here? Raynell, happily seeing Carmet, cawed. Are we ready to go? Carmet hugged Raynell and said, We have to leave now. I'm sorry. Suddenly, Raynell found herself in an iron cage, looking puzzled. She was in a large iron cage, with a big question mark in her mind. Camusite. I'm sorry, Raynell, please endure until we reach the capital. Raynell screamed, cawing loudly. Now he's locking me in a birdcage? Her angry scream echoed through the sky. Traitor. Raynell thought about the time before she turned into a crow when she was like someone capturing Pokemon. Especially the wild red panda named Reno appearing at level 99. As an animal trainer, there were times when it was necessary to cage the animals for transportation. Each time they were caged, they would scream, scratch, and even pull hair. Poor Reno, covered in wounds, would beg, please go into the cage. Every time, it was incredibly hard to subdue the raging animals. And now, suddenly, she had to experience what they felt back then? But now the times have changed. Raynell, in the form of a crow, was caged and screamed furiously, causing the cage to rattle. Caw 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 caw. You evil guy, will you let me out or not? The servant of Carmet was drenched in sweat. Your Highness, please let us take it away. Carmet ignored Raynell. He refused the servant, saying, No, I will keep it by my side. Meanwhile, Raynell was struggling frantically inside the cage. The clattering sound was making him extremely uncomfortable. The bottom of the cage kept shaking, making him dizzy. Struggling too much caused everything around Raynell to spin. His head started pounding, and he felt so dizzy his face turned pale. Ugh, everything in front of me is spinning, just like the day after drinking too much beer mixed with soju, and now my head is reeling. Raynell couldn't stand it any longer and let out a loud squawk, as if to say, "Carmot, I feel sick." At night, a carriage traveling through the forest made a clattering sound as it moved along the road. Carmot used his hand to open the cage, his face full of concern as he looked at the raven. "Are you okay?" "I'm sorry, I didn't know you were feeling this bad." But Raynell was so exhausted that he lay flat, his head spinning as if seeing 1,000 stars. He could only moan weakly, "Kwa-a-a." Raynell's eyes shone as he glanced at Carmot. "Kwa-a-you-o who you o? Now you look at me and still ask if I'm okay?" Suddenly, the raven became more alert, furiously lunging and pecking Carmot's hand, pecking at this awful person. Raynell flew back and forth, pecking Carmot's hand repeatedly to vent his anger. "Quack quack 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 cc quack. You ungrateful person. Did I raise you like this? Living life like this is not right." Seeing his hand being pecked and hearing the series of cries, Carmot sighed. "You're really angry, huh?" Carmot patted Raynell to soothe him. "Calm down, Raynell." But how could Raynell forgive him? He glared sharply at Carmot. "Huh? You think just by petting me I'll calm down? Do you think I have no opinions of my own?" However, being petted made Raynell feel so comfortable that he melted, closing his eyes in delight. Laughing softly, he thought, "Yeah, I guess I don't." Carmot's face was full of remorse. "I'm sorry for making you so uncomfortable." Carmot stroked the raven. The scene was unexpectedly peaceful. "But I don't want to return to the palace without you." Raynell was moved by those words. "Carmot, the night sky is so peaceful. Occasionally, a breeze blows, making the leaves rustle." Carmot confided in Raynell, "Now I no longer care about your origins. Whether you're a bird person or a dragon doesn't matter as much as you being a presence that brings me luck." With that, Carmot wrapped his arms around Raynell, tenderly kissing him on the beak. "Don't ever leave me, okay?" Raynell was shocked by Carmot's kiss. His whole body felt like it was electrified. What just happened? Did he just kiss me? Raynell's mind was in turmoil because of the kiss. "Oh my god, you a," with a series of other unintelligible sounds following. Carmot, unaware of Raynell's inner turmoil from the kiss, continued to confide. "When we get back to the palace, enemies will be everywhere. Among those people, who should I trust, and who should I doubt? I have to constantly think about that. Now, you are the only one I trust, Raynell." Raynell, feeling shy, covered his face with his wings. Hearing this, he uncovered his eyes. At that moment, Raynell understood the problem. "Ah, so that's how it is. Carmot is now sharing his deepest thoughts with me, things he can't say to anyone else because I am an animal that can only listen, not talk. If I were human, I might not see this side of him." Raynell spread his wings, hearing the fluttering sound, and flew to hug Carmot. "Carmot, even though I'm just a raven, unable to help you much, I will always stay by your side." The raven's hug made Carmot's heart warm. Carmot was unusually gentle with Raynell. "Thank you, Raynell, for understanding me." Raynell perched on Carmot's shoulder, hearing the thanks, inexplicably blushed. You, my face feels like it's about to explode. Luckily, I'm in the form of a raven, so it's not noticeable." It was morning, the sky was clear blue with bright sunlight. The carriage stopped in front of a large, luxurious palace, looking very dazzling. Raynell, seeing the magnificent sight, had eyes that sparkled, and his beak opened wide in amazement. "Wow, quack!" Entering the room made Raynell gape even more. "Is this Carmot's room? Wow!" Carmot stood next to Raynell's cage, arms crossed, asking, "What do you think, Raynell? Do you like it?" But Raynell didn't care about Carmot's words, focusing only on his own thoughts. "There are so many shiny things. Really, if I swiped one, no one would notice, right? How much would those things fetch?" Attracted by the shiny, expensive items, Raynell was drooling, quickly shaking off the wicked thoughts, and wiping his beak with his wing. "Calm down, I almost lost my composure because of a raven's instincts. Get a grip, I'm human, I'm human." Carmot slightly bowed his head to talk, making Raynell, who was scheming just now, startle. "Raynell, I will be away for a while. There are some matters I need to handle immediately." Carmot, feeling uneasy, had to give strict instructions. "You must behave and stay here. Understand? There might be dangers, you get it?" Raynell, embarrassed, couldn't look directly at Carmot and had to look away, squawking, "Got it," feeling a bit flustered inside. I hope he didn't notice I was drooling. Carmot went to instruct his servant. "While I'm away, take good care of that bird." The servant respectfully bowed. "Understood, Your Highness." Passing behind the servant but not yet leaving, Karmit left a warning with a menacing tone. If you think it's just a simple bird and treat it carelessly, you'll have to bear the consequences. I believe you understand what I mean. Karmit's threats made the servant tremble with fear. Seeing Karmit leave the room and close the door with a click, he finally relaxed but felt like crying inside. I want to quit. Then, pale-faced, he looked at Rionel's cage. Branded as a bringer of death and destruction. Ugh, why must I take care of a bird that symbolizes death? It was the prince's order, so he couldn't escape. He brought a small bowl and placed it in the cage. Just feeding it should be enough, right? Rionel curiously looked at the bowl and saw glittering, wriggling worms that seemed to be greeting her. Seeing them, Rionel was so shocked that her soul nearly left her bird body. Why isn't the servant paying attention to Rionel? His whole body was trembling as he muttered to himself. Birds usually like bugs, so feeding it these should be fine. However, how could Rionel agree? Rionel let out a loud cry in protest, quack. I don't like this. Karmit, walking outside, felt something was wrong but wasn't sure what. What's that? I think I just heard Rionel scream. Am I imagining things? It turned out it wasn't his imagination but the truth. Rionel was crying and screaming, Hua Karmit, come back quickly. It wasn't an illusion. Karmit, still misunderstanding that he was being overly anxious, smiled helplessly. I'm really something, getting worried after just a short while apart. But the truth was, Rionel was terrified and crying because of the wriggling worms. You should be worried. Suddenly, hurried footsteps echoed as someone ran, shoes thumping on the ground. The third prince, Llewellyn, approached with a happy smile at Karmit. You've returned safely. Contrary to Llewellyn's joy, Karmit turned cold. His golden eyes flashed with killing intent. He thought to himself that the inevitable had finally arrived but coldly responded, long time no see, Llewellyn. Llewellyn stepped forward, gripping Karmit's hand tightly with a snap. I was very worried. You can't imagine how much I was worried when I heard you went missing while hunting. Llewellyn's smile turned malicious as he looked directly at Karmit. His grip on Karmit's hand tightened. He looked straight into Karmit's eyes with contempt. You, who doesn't even have awakening powers, must have had a hard time. Despite Llewellyn's mockery, Karmit remained calm, simply smiling serenely. This guy hasn't made any progress at all. Do you still think I'll crumble under such petty provocations? Karmit's words made Llewellyn flinch. It's really a pity, Llewellyn, but contrary to what he expected, Karmit only smiled gently. Placing a hand on his chest, he said softly, I should have accepted my brother's joke, but instead, I made you worry by causing a little chaos. I deeply regret showing you such a disgraceful sight. Llewellyn was confused by those words, his expression wavering slightly as he ground his teeth. As expected, Llewellyn's reaction didn't disappoint Karmit. Karmit's golden eyes stared at Llewellyn with calculation. Just saying that already throws you off balance? Elder brother. You're safe. The voice echoed through the palace halls, familiar yet unwelcome. Karmit turned to see Llewellyn approaching, his strides hurried and his expression a mix of relief and reproach. They shared the same murky gold hair and yellowish brown eyes, traits that marked them as brothers but did little to bridge the gap between them. It's been a while, Llewellyn, Karmit greeted with a neutral tone, his eyes assessing his younger brother's demeanor. Llewellyn, catching his breath, continued in a rush, do you know how worried I was when I heard you went missing during the hunt? It's dangerous for someone who hasn't awakened. Karmit's smile was subtle yet tinged with amusement at Llewellyn's mention of awakening. He still doesn't suspect. If I caused you concern, Llewellyn, I apologize, Karmit replied smoothly. Perhaps I underestimated the impact of my absence. But you need not worry. I've returned safely. The first prince's tone was polite, but beneath it lay an edge that Llewellyn could sense. It was the edge of someone who knew more than he let on, someone who had recently gained power and now wielded it with careful precision. Llewellyn, sensing the shift in Karmit's demeanor, faltered slightly. He was used to being the outspoken one, the one who wielded words like weapons. But against Karmit's newfound confidence, his own barbs felt dull. As your older brother, I appreciate your concern, Karmit continued, his voice taking on a slightly mocking tone. Let's consider this a jest, albeit a poorly timed one. Now, if you'll excuse me, I must see father. With that, Karmit brushed past Llewellyn, leaving him standing alone in the hallway, fists clenched in frustration. Karmit's demeanor had shifted since his return, and Llewellyn sensed a newfound resolve in his brother, a resolve that made him uneasy. Standing before the red door guarded by 2 strict guards, Karmit stepped inside, knelt on one knee, and respectfully greeted, Your son is honored to have an audience with His Majesty the Emperor. Karmit looked at the Emperor lying on the large bed and greeted the Crown Prince, Greetings, Prince. The Emperor, bedridden and exhausted, coughed a few times and tried to respond to Karmat's greeting. Yes, I heard you went missing. It's a relief that you're safe and sound. Karmat, no longer kneeling, stepped closer to the bed, concerned about his father's health. How have you been lately? The emperor continued coughing. Neither good nor bad, nothing has changed. At least nothing the prince should worry about, so don't ask me such displeasing questions. Strangely, the emperor's eyes were two different colors, gray and gold. The emperor clicked his tongue, his attitude unclear, and said to Karmat, have you finally broken out of your shell? Truly an incompetent child. The emperor coughed again, mocking him. If you stay like this, your younger brother will stab you in the back. The emperor's realization was not unexpected for Karmat. As expected, father recognized my awakening immediately, unlike someone else. Karmat smiled at the emperor. Thanks to being stabbed in the back, I broke out of my shell, so I owe him some gratitude. But the emperor clicked his tongue in disdain. Humph, how foolish. Karmat, feeling insulted, forced a laugh. Ho ho ho, from now on, I'll strive not to be foolish anymore. He gently placed his hand on the emperor's slightly wrinkled hand, speaking affectionately. Father, you can rest assured. I will uphold the inheritance, something I haven't paid attention to until now. Then suddenly, Karmat's demeanor changed. Just moments ago, he had been gentle, but now he turned cold, staring directly at the emperor, causing him to pause. You must be at ease so you can go meet the empress, the one you have longed for so dearly, right? Karmat smiled faintly, but his words were sharp. So, your majesty, stay as you have always been, until only one side remains standing. The emperor glanced at Karmat, muttering, how insolent. I failed in raising you. Karmat, as if mocking the emperor, smiled and stood up. When have I ever not been insolent? He turned and started to leave, saying, if mother hadn't died from illness, I might have received the inheritance more smoothly. With that, he bowed and left the room. I take my leave. The room was now empty except for the emperor, who lay on his bed, laughing heartily. Ha 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 ha. The emperor was pleased with Karmat's words. Yes, one must have such ambition. He looked up at a painting on the wall of a beautiful woman with golden hair and green eyes, speaking softly. If you could see him now, how would you react? In the painting, the woman had a gentle smile. Wolves, throughout their lives, mate for life, and if a wolf loses its partner unexpectedly, it will fall ill and eventually die, as if nothing in the world holds it back. The emperor's heterochromatic eyes were filled with sorrow. I've always wanted Karmat to secure his position as quickly as possible. Now, the emperor's only desire was for the beautiful woman in the painting. I long to see your smile soon. Raynell in the cage kept crying out desperately, caw-caw. She was so hungry that her eyes were white, her stomach growling nonstop. Caw-caw, I'm so hungry. Raynell's body was exhausted, and her once plump crow face seemed haggard. She thought miserably, how long has Karmat been gone? Birds have a digestive system that processes food very quickly, so it feels like I've been starving for days. Accompanied by the constant growling of her stomach, she felt so hungry that her soul wanted to leave her body. Raynell cursed silently because she couldn't speak. Caw-caw. That terrible human, if you don't give me anything other than bugs, what can I do? Are you going to let me starve to death? The servant, not knowing that Raynell couldn't eat those things, just tilted his head in confusion. Strange, why isn't this bird eating? Isn't it hungry? Raynell used her wings to cover her face and cried quietly, hoping Karmat would return soon. Suddenly, she peeked at the bowl filled with wriggling worms, each one plump and alive. Her mouth began to water. A dreadful thought crossed her crow mind. Maybe I should try eating one? Raynell started rationalizing to justify her craving. Well, all my organs are those of a crow now, so my taste buds will be like a crow's. These baby worms might actually taste good. Fortunately, her human consciousness reappeared just in time to stop her. Exhausted, Raynell panted, I almost lost my humanity to this animalistic hunger. How terrifying. Just as she lay down, resigned to starving to death, a hand gently patted her, calling softly, Raynell, Raynell. Karmat's arrival was like a divine savior, radiant and glowing, coming to rescue those in distress. Oh my, Raynell, have you been starving this whole time? No matter how much you hate bugs, you can't do this. Seeing Karmat, Raynell perked up and cried out loudly, caw-caw-caw. She made both Karmat and the servant panic. Karmat shouted, I was only gone for a short while, and you've become this haggard? What happened? Quickly, bring some raw meat and fruits here. The panicked servant quickly replied, yes, I understand. Moments later, the room was filled with the sound of munching. Raynell's bowl was overflowing with food. She ate ravenously, her body swelling but showing no signs of stopping. Tears of joy welled up. I might have lost a few years off my life, but thankfully I retained my humanity until the end. Karmit, sitting on the bed, smiled and signaled, "Come here after you finish eating." The crow, satisfied, asked, "Caw, what?" Karmit opened a small box with a click. "I want to give you a gift to commemorate your entry into the palace." He opened the box, revealing a collection of glittering jewels and gems that lit up the room, leaving her gaping in shock. "Take whatever you like to play with." Seeing the brightly colored gems, Raynell was shocked. "Oh my goodness, how much are these worth?" Karmit's generosity frightened Raynell. "Even if I'm just an unfortunate crow, I'm still just a bird. Is this really necessary? Am I truly receiving love?" At that moment, a thought crossed her mind. If only this were love between humans, how wonderful it would be. She even imagined a fantasy scenario between her and him. However, reality harshly reminded her, this webtoon won't turn me into a human. Give up. It's already chapter 7. Karmit, sitting nearby, smiled joyfully. "Ho ho, so Raynell, do you like it?" Raynell stared at Karmit. "At least I've shed my image as a bad omen. This is a significant step forward." She picked up a beautiful pink gem with her beak. "So from now on, I shouldn't be dejected but do what I can." She dropped the gem into Karmit's hand, making him extremely touched and happy. "Raynell, are you giving me a gift?" He felt as if his child had given him their most cherished toy. Karmit hugged Raynell tightly. "Really, how much more adorable can you get? If I become emperor, I will certainly choose the crow as the national bird." Karmit's words made Raynell smugly smirk. "Then love me even more." The sky was a beautiful clear blue. In the courtyard of the palace, there was a large fountain surrounded by many vibrant flowers, making the scenery even more sparkling. Raynell was freely flying in the sky, stretching her wings with delight. "Ah, it's been a long time since I've been able to fly around in such an open space. It feels so good." Raynell happily flew from place to place, singing and cawing. "There are a lot of things to look at in Karmit's room, so I wasn't really bored. But it's nice to go out for a walk like this sometimes." The gardener, who was holding pruning shears, suddenly noticed Raynell and jumped in shock. "Oh my God!" The gardener cautiously approached the broom, his eyes fixed on Raynell with worry. "Why is the bird that symbolizes death in the prince's garden? If I don't chase it away quickly, I'll be scolded by the steward." Grab the broom, but before he could reach the handle, a voice behind him stopped him. "Leave it be," Karmit instructed the gardener as he approached. "From now on, there's no need to chase crows out of the garden." The gardener, seeing Karmit, hesitated. "Your Highness." Karmit warned, "This is a bird I cherish very much. If it gets hurt, I won't let it slide. Remember that." The gardener stood still, his hands shaking as he held the broom. He hurriedly replied, "Yes, yes, I understand." He quickly carried the broom and shears and ran inside, not understanding the strange preferences of the nobility. "But outwardly," he said, "then I'll go attend to other tasks." Karmit sighed and crossed his arms, thinking, Raynell almost got hurt. Having to give such instructions every time isn't ideal. He pondered, there needs to be some kind of indication so that no one can harm Raynell. Raynell had flown around enough and was about to land when she suddenly noticed a tall young man approaching but couldn't see his face clearly. "What's this? Someone seems to be coming closer." Llewellyn smiled and spoke, "I'm here." Why did Llewellyn provoke Karmit as soon as he arrived? "I didn't see you in the office or the bedroom, so I thought you had gone missing again." Karmit turned his head to look at Llewellyn, while Raynell's face showed clear disdain, not liking Llewellyn at all. "Even if I were on a high-speed train, just seeing his shadow would ruin my day. This guy is really..." Raynell wanted to tell Llewellyn, "You're really disgusting, go home and raise pigs." Karmit, unfazed, spoke directly to Llewellyn, "So you came straight to find me? What's the matter? If you have something to say, tell my servant. You seem pretty idle." Llewellyn continued his pretense, "It's sad, isn't it? How could you treat a younger brother who came to spend warm brotherly time with you so poorly? Don't you love your youngest brother? Or do you not find him cute now that he's grown up?" Standing face to face, Llewellyn and Karmit seemed to be in a silent but fierce confrontation, their eyes almost shooting sparks at each other, making Raynell nervous. Are they really emitting electric sparks? This atmosphere is intense, is everything all right? Llewellyn broke the silence first, "Let's not beat around the bush. I came here because I heard some very interesting news." Karmit feigned curiosity. "Oh, what is it?" Llewellyn's eyes glowed with a cold, red light as he glared at Karmit. "Father said you've decided to compete for the throne. Is that true?" Karmit smiled faintly, issuing a challenge. "Yes, eventually, it has to be settled. We'll see who becomes the next emperor and who dies." Llewellyn sneered, mocking Karmit. "Ha, I didn't expect to hear such words from you. A dimwit who can't even awaken." Unlike Llewellyn's aggressive attitude, Karmit remained calm, "But every word stings, doesn't it? You, on the other hand, even though you've successfully awakened, still haven't completely secured the throne, right? Someone like you doesn't deserve to say that. Think about it, during my absence, you had the chance to convince all the nobles but did nothing. Just relying on the fact that you've awakened? You're mistaken. Raynell, watching from the sidelines, felt like a moviegoer at a cinema, munching popcorn while focusing on the intense scene. Watching Karmat's counterattacks made Raynell want to cheer, yes. Keep going. But also feeling a bit tense, wondering, is this what a royal power struggle looks like in real life? Karmat wasn't backing down either. He grabbed Llewellyn's shoulders, speaking directly to his face, think about it, little brother. You've successfully awakened, had enough opportunities, yet did nothing. Compared to me, who's the dimwit? Llewellyn, incensed by the taunts, his veins bulging, began to transform, with fur sprouting around his neck, and his sharp fangs showing, and you, speak so people can understand. The throne. A red circle appeared around Llewellyn, everything started shaking. Llewellyn was beginning to awaken, parts of his body transforming. Llewellyn growled a few times, then slammed his hand to the ground, his eyes glowing brightly with determination, right here. Seeing the transformation, Karmat wasn't surprised, thinking, good, a reaction I anticipated. But Karmat was taken aback by the sight of a giant yellow wolf snarling fiercely before him. That guy, that form is more like a dog than a wolf. The word succeeded in enraging Llewellyn, who lunged at Karmat. Seeing the wolf's sharp teeth as if ready to devour him, Karmat wondered, how should I deal with this? But before he could come up with a plan, a shadow flew in at incredible speed, crashing into Llewellyn with a loud thud. Raynell, eyes blazing with fury, glared at Llewellyn. The impact left a big bruise on Llewellyn's cheek. Seeing Llewellyn being hit so hard, Karmat was left speechless. Llewellyn, staggering to the ground, was met with Raynell's wrath. Caw caw caw, she cursed at him, how dare you attack my Karmat? Raynell, still furious, continued to kick Llewellyn's face repeatedly. Caw caw, I'm the crow that fought one-on-one with 7 werewolves. Just me alone. Caw. Come at me, you idiot. Karmat watched the tall wolf Llewellyn being beaten up by the much smaller Raynell and sighed in exasperation, is that guy really my brother? But realizing Raynell might be in danger, he worried about her getting hurt. Contrary to Karmat's concern, Raynell showed no fear, taunting Llewellyn, caw caw caw, you'll never catch me. Llewellyn, already infuriated by the beating and the taunts, roared, then opened his mouth wide, lunging at Raynell. Seeing this, Karmat quickly shouted, stop. He flew in and kicked Llewellyn in the stomach, sending him flying. Llewellyn, taking a critical hit, reverted to human form, blood spilling from his mouth. Ugh. Karmat clenched his fist, looking at Llewellyn writhing on the ground. Without my master's permission, you dare to intrude into my garden, transform into a wolf, and cause chaos because you were attacked by a crow? You're not just a dog in form, you've completely become a dog. Karmat's face was ice cold. The royal blood of this land doesn't mix with stray dog's blood. Llewellyn, blood still in his mouth, angrily retorted, you half-breed, how dare you let that cursed crow attack my face? Llewellyn lay on the ground, watching Karmat approach, trembling. Yes, as you said, I'm a half-breed, a royal who hasn't awakened yet. Looking at Llewellyn's frightened face, Karmat's sharp words were a warning, but remember this, my foolish brother. Even if I haven't awakened, don't think my strength is inferior to yours. With my weakened power and smaller form, defeating someone like you, Karmat lowered his head to look directly at Llewellyn, scornfully, I think it's no longer difficult. Llewellyn, beaten several times, weakly supported himself on the ground to get up but still managed to say, cough, next time, I won't be like this. Seeing Llewellyn leave, Karmat already had his own plans. Yes, I've awakened and can turn the tables, but the time isn't right yet. If I take over the succession while many still support him, it will create chaos. Handling Llewellyn must be done after I've consolidated the basic conditions and built a solid foundation, Karmat thought. So the thing I have to do now is, Karmat beckoned Raynell, Raynell, come here. Holding Raynell in his arms, Karmat's face turned angry, looking terrifying, I need to scold you. Raynell, who had been so fierce earlier, now seeing Karmat's stern face, turned pale with fear, huh? Why me all of a sudden? Llewellyn was the one at fault, but Karmat crossed his arms over his chest and looked at Raynell dangerously. Karmat sighed helplessly, pressing his hand to his forehead as he tried to explain to Raynell. No matter how stupid you are, you know his awakened form is different from normal people. What if you got bitten? Moreover, because he is so arrogant, he might see you as a target. Raynell was flustered when scolded, trying to look cute and meowing, caw caw. Did Karmat face any danger? That cute look was too much for Karmat to handle. Looking into Raynell's sparkling eyes made Karmat flustered, clutching his chest in pain. Ugh, too cute, he thought, feeling guilty for scolding it. Fortunately, Kermit regained his composure and reminded himself, but I can't let this slide so easily. Kermit cleared his throat to calm down, and said to Raynell, acting cute won't work this time. Last time when the monsters attacked, you did the same. It's really too reckless. Hearing those words, Raynell approached Kermit, slightly lowering her head, trying to make him understand. What if you get hurt or die because of this? Those words made Raynell reconsider. Well, that can't be denied. Thinking back to when I was human, how diligently I used to read books. My knowledge of animals from my previous life was useful when I fought against monsters or wolves. If I apply everything I know from those books, like the habits of wolves, their hunting techniques, the parts of their bodies that are vulnerable, and their reflexes. Crows can do that too. Raynell could empathize with Kermit, but Kermit wouldn't know that and would surely think she was being reckless. Remembering how she had panicked when her dog Suaw ran in front of a bus, Raynell understood Kermit's worry. Deciding to make peace, Raynell stepped forward, tapping her beak on Kermit's hand, cawing as if to apologize. Kermit stroked Raynell's head, and she nuzzled his hand in regret. Caw, I won't make you worry anymore. Kermit's face was full of sorrow and contemplation. Maybe I'm worrying unnecessarily. If Raynell were a birdman or a dragon, she could easily avoid Leolin's unskilled attacks. Thinking about Raynell's mysterious past and possible hidden powers, Kermit made a decision. Until all dangers are gone, I must keep Raynell safe. Kermit gently sat on the bed next to Raynell. From now on, don't risk your life to protect me anymore. Kermit chuckled. Now that I've awakened, I won't get hurt so easily. Above all, Kermit smiled softly. I don't want to lose you to someone like Leolin. Meanwhile, in another room, objects were being smashed to pieces, and an angry voice shouted. Damn it, everything in the room is overturned and scattered. That bastard, how dare he? That damn Kermit. Llewellyn, in a fit of rage, threw everything around, standing and panting, then trembling with anger as he covered his face with one hand, gritting his teeth. That accursed crow. Recalling the scene made Llewellyn's blood boil, his whole body trembling with rage. How dare a bird that represents death put its filthy foot on my face? Imagining myself sitting on the throne, laughing, surrounded by the countless corpses of crows littering the ground. I swear, if I become emperor, I will start by eradicating all the crows in the empire until not a single feather is left. But suddenly Llewellyn remembered something. Wait a minute. Llewellyn thought back, confused. Why did Kermit act immediately back then? He's the type who would act cautiously no matter what I did to that bird. Llewellyn's malicious grin revealed his plotting nature. I need to investigate this thoroughly. Footsteps echoed as Llewellyn stood in front of a polished mirror. Placing his hand on the mirror, he commanded. In the name of the heir to the throne, I order you to create what I demand within a day. The polished mirror surface began to ripple. From within the mirror, an old man with a braided white beard gradually appeared. His eyes gleamed as he solemnly responded. As you command. In another room, Kermit was busy working with Raynell perched on his shoulder. The sound of papers rustling filled the air. Raynell, perched on Kermit's shoulder, was so sleepy that she almost drooled, nodding off but still managing to caw a few times. Kermit, take a break and then continue working. Outside, someone approached and knocked on the door. Your Highness, Marquis Namuel seeks an audience. Kermit agreed. Let him in. The knock startled Raynell awake, swallowing her drool, and she thought drowsily. Namuel. I feel like I've heard this name somewhere before. A silver lock of hair fluttered as Namuel stepped in, greeting. Long time no see, Your Highness. Namuel, with his silver hair, held a box in his hand. He smiled warmly at Kermit. I have completed what you requested and brought it here. Namuel smiled with his eyes. Am I interrupting your work? Kermit, seated at his desk, looked at Namuel. Kumain, Marquis Namuel. You finished earlier than I expected. As he spoke, Raynell, perched on Kermit's shoulder, suddenly flew up, flapping her wings excitedly in front of Namuel with bright eyes. Namuel looked at Raynell, puzzled. Kermit called softly. Raynell. Raynell blushed, her eyes sparkling even more as she breathed heavily, exclaiming inwardly. Oh, it's really Namuel. The silver-haired man before her was Saman Namuel, the eldest son of the Duke and also a mage. This character was designed to play a crucial role as the true male lead of the original story. Raynell, overjoyed, flew around Namuel, cawing excitedly, feeling ecstatic. I can see the real Namuel like this. He looked handsome in the illustrations, but in reality, he's even more handsome. I can feel his power growing stronger. The ultimate handsome man who will save this world. Reynal, mesmerized, rubbed and pecked at Namuel's head, making him laugh out loud. It seems very friendly, Your Highness. This is the first time I've seen a crow act so affectionate, it's quite interesting. But Kermit was not as amused. He stood up angrily, slamming his hand on the table. Kermit, feeling as if struck by lightning, broke into a cold sweat, calling out hesitantly, Reynal. Seeing Reynal and Namuel getting along so well, Namuel laughed as Reynal nuzzled him. Ha ha ha, that tickles. That sight made Kermit uneasy. This can't be. I've never seen Reynal act so boldly with anyone else. Rushing forward, Kermit glared at Reynal and extended his hand. Come here, Reynal. Stop bothering the guest. Reynal, finally remembering Kermit's presence, felt a bit guilty. Oh, who was entranced by someone else's handsome guy and neglected her own handsome guy? She had no choice but to reluctantly fly over to Kermit, sweating nervously. Caw, caw. Reynal tried to soothe the situation. I never two-time. I'm a loyal, adorable crow, believe me. Hearing Reynal's apologetic caws, Kermit still couldn't be satisfied. He firmly grabbed Reynal's beak. I'll scold you later. Poor Reynal could only cry internally. Boo-hoo. But Namuel, still intrigued by Reynal, interrupted, his face full of interest. What an interesting bird. I know crows are intelligent, but understanding human language is something I've never seen before. Could it be a birdman or a dragon? Namuel's speculation made Reynal despondent, thinking. Nope, I'm just a black crow. If I were like that, I wouldn't have to suffer like this. Namuel offered. If you allow it, I would like to take it to my research room. But how could Kermit agree? He immediately turned and held Reynal tightly. Marquis, I want to see what you've brought first. Namuel then remembered. Oh, right, I almost forgot. Namuel slowly opened the box in his hand, revealing a sparkling green light. Inside the box was a beautifully gleaming green necklace, enticing anyone who saw it. Namuel said. This is the necklace Your Highness requested. Namuel respectfully handed the box to Kermit. I have enchanted this necklace with special magic as per your request. I don't know who it will be given to, but it must be someone very dear to you. Namuel's words caught Reynal's attention, making her curious as she looked up at Kermit. Who is this precious person to Kermit? Is he planning to leave me and marry someone else? Just the thought of Kermit marrying someone else and abandoning her made Reynal cry internally, feeling lost. No way. If that happens, I'll be single forever. Reynal had large, gentle, sparkling eyes, telling herself not to worry. Kermit said, Reynal, how could I ever abandon you? Kermit slowly extended his hands toward Reynal. To me, you are more precious than anything. This moved Reynal to tears. However, to her utter surprise, Kermit then suggested, so, why don't you become our little one? Reynal was turned into a baby, being held in Kermit's arms, with a pacifier in her mouth, stunned and unable to accept the situation. Reynal cried out loudly, no. No, no, no. Her tears flowed like a waterfall. You could say Reynal was a heartbroken crow due to love. I don't want this, I don't want this, I don't want this. My fate can't be this tragic. Reynal thought. Just kick me out already. It seems, with the form of a crow, love is a luxury. Is that really true? Reynal continued to drown in the self-induced tragedy, crying and trembling all over. I can't become his first child. In her misery, a pair of hands reached around to put a necklace on Reynal's neck. Reynal was astonished to see the sparkling necklace. Oh, so it's not what I thought. Reynal was so touched her heart pounded. Is this necklace for me? And at that moment, Reynal's heart was joyful again. Reynal stretched her wings in delight, feeling cheerful. I can't believe it. I can't believe it. Kermit had a custom necklace made just for me? Even if it's a bit loose, it doesn't matter. Everyone, this is my necklace. Luckily, he didn't marry someone else. The emerald on the necklace sparkled with a strange light, making Reynal a bit puzzled. Namuel understood and smiled. So, the reason you requested a magic that adjusts to the wearer's size was because it was a gift for this crow? Kermit held Reynal in his arms, smiling very tenderly. Yes, it will be a testament to what I cherish. As soon as he said this, Kermit hugged Reynal tightly, his face not revealing more. You don't need to worry too much about Reynal either, replied Marquis Namuel. Ileila Becaraful. I don't want His Highness to hate me for making a necklace for Reynal. Kermit asked, do you want anything? Namuel just smiled, that's not necessary, Your Highness. Kermit will be the ruler of the Empire one day, won't he? Namuel slowly said to Kermit, if I don't earn your favor, it will be very difficult. Namuel's words confused Kermit. Why are you speaking so rudely? You know saying such things in the royal palace is not appropriate. What's your goal? Namuel placed his hand on his chest, smiling lightly. My father always said that getting involved in politics would not end well. Namuel slowly explained, as you know, my father was royalty who could not awaken his power. After renouncing his claim to the throne, he never looked back at the palace to avoid unnecessary conflicts. Namuel's memories floated around. And I didn't want to face the fake nobles either, so I decided to follow the path of magic. But Prince Llewellyn made me unable to sit still. The reason was that he treated us magicians as objects of use rather than as humans. I witnessed the third prince treating subordinate magicians as if they weren't human. Namuel thought that if someone like him became the next emperor, the country I was born and raised in would soon collapse. Truly, Namuel didn't want that to happen. The hand on his chest tightened slightly. I will not stand idly by and watch such a terrible thing happen like others. Namuel's words made Carmet ponder. If I become emperor, do you trust that I won't act like Llewellyn? Many people, after gaining power, turn their backs and betray others. Reynal, lying in Carmet's arms, knew well. Carmet would never do that. Why say such a thing on purpose? Reynal slightly turned to sneak a glance at Namuel, guessing, is it because he doesn't fully trust Namuel yet? Namuel responded to Carmet, are you testing my trust? I know you are not like that. Namuel reached into his pocket for something, if you don't believe my words. Reynal saw what Namuel took out and was startled. In Namuel's hand was a bottle containing the glowing Coven rock. Then take this. Seeing the item, Reynal was confused as to why the Coven rock was there. Carmet took the bottle, examining it. Oh, this. Reynal was shocked to the point of being stunned. Her brain was reloading the situation. Wait, about 2 seconds. Namuel assumed Carmet didn't know what it was and introduced it. This is a fruit that helps awaken latent powers within the body. Reynal slowly thought through the content. So, according to the original story, Carmet awakens after eating the Coven rock that Namuel gives him. Remembering she had found a similar fruit in the forest, she was puzzled. Then what was it I found back then? Reynal now felt her soul leave her body, unable to utter a word. Was it really just luck? Namuel continued to explain, as you know, the Coven rock is very rare and only bears fruit when the climate, sunlight, and temperature are just right. Indeed, luck is the most important factor in finding the Coven rock. I was lucky to spot it on a beast's neck. Reynal was sweating coldly, starting to feel dizzy. This is a disaster. My brain feels like it's being struck by lightning repeatedly. I've messed up the original story. Usually, a slight deviation can cause a huge butterfly effect. What will happen now? Is this world really doomed? Carmet asked, why didn't you eat it? Namuel, still very respectful, said, I also have royal blood, so I will soon awaken the power of the wolf. Compared to the power struggles in the royal family, I prefer to pursue magic. Carmet sighed in relief, understanding, I see, to the point of giving up the Coven rock? I understand the Marquis's intentions now. But he didn't notice that Reynal had been so scared that she was sweating all over. Namuel raised his head to ask Carmet, so, will you accept my support? Carmet stepped forward, I promise you. Standing closer to Namuel, Carmet seemed to emit a radiant aura, sincerely speaking to Namuel, if I can ascend to the throne, I will take responsibility for all of Marquis Namuel's support. I swear. By my honor. Hearing these heartfelt words, Namuel bowed, his cloak fluttering, respectfully swearing, from the moment Prince Carmet becomes emperor, my knowledge and magic will belong to his majesty. Namuel playfully winked and smiled at Carmet, from now on, I hope you can speak less formally with me. Even though I am royalty, the next emperor shouldn't speak so formally to a lowly noble like me. Carmet smiled, seemingly becoming more intimate with Namuel in that moment. Carmet agreed, I will do so. The Coven rock in the bottle gleamed brightly. Carmet took out the Coven rock, raising it high to examine it. Who should I give this to? Carmet kept staring at it thoughtfully. It must be someone who, after gaining power, won't betray me. Carmet glanced at Reynal. Right now, I can't think of anyone other than Reynal. Seeing Reynal looking at him with her large, adorable eyes, Carmet thought, a crow whose true identity isn't clear, whether a birdman or a dragon. What will happen if she eats the Coven rock? Reynal was still scared, sweat still pouring down her face. What should I do with that fruit? Looking at the Coven rock, Reynal's mind was chaotic. No matter how I think about it, I can't imagine the butterfly effect that will occur. If Carmet eats the Coven rock after awakening his power, the Coven rock continues to shine mystically. Moreover, the more I look at it, the more I'm drawn to it. Reynal's soul seemed to be drawn into the Coven rock, making her whole body feel light and dreamy. It felt incredibly mesmerizing. Carmet, in a moment of absent-mindedness, placed the Coven rock into Reynal's mouth. Reynal, as if losing all reason, suddenly swallowed the Coven rock, making Carmot panic. Carmot was utterly flustered, his face turning pale, losing his usual composure, as he looked at Reynal, who was now holding the Coven rock in her mouth. "Wait, that's very dangerous. Eating that could be fatal. Please, give it to me." Reynal, with an indifferent look on his face, gulped down the Coven rock in one go. Carmot screamed, "No," and rushed over, trying to pry open the crow's beak. "Reynal, you can't die. I'll give you everything you want, so please spit it out." As he thought of the Coven rock in Reynal's stomach, Carmot's heart pounded in fear. "Am I powerless to watch Reynal die?" Carmot's eyes widened. "No. I can't let this happen." He looked at the crow in his hands, feeling uncertain if he could endure such a loss. He stood frozen, staring at Reynal. The space around them fell silent, and Carmot's grip on the small crow tightened, causing it to exhale heavily. Carmot anxiously questioned, "Is nothing happening? Reynal isn't moving? What's wrong?" He slumped into a chair, covering his face with his hands in helplessness. "Thank goodness you're okay. I thought something terrible would happen. Please, don't pick up and eat anything like that again." The crow seemed oblivious to what had happened, looking dazed as Carmot spoke, her head spinning. "What just happened? What's going on?" After being entranced by the Coven rock, Reynal couldn't recall what happened next. Judging by Carmot's reaction, she must have eaten it. Reynal checked her wings. "That was close. My body feels fine, but it's a waste because I imagine transforming into a warrior crow shooting flames from my eyes to destroy Llewellyn." Feeling a mix of disappointment and relief, she rested her head on her wings. "Nothing happened, so am I just going to remain a crow? At least if I felt pain like Carmot did when he awakened, I would have hope. Am I really the protagonist of a romantic fantasy?" Reynal let out a sorrowful caw, her neck twisting to one side. "Why am I just starting to feel a bit of pain?" Carmot, noticing her discomfort, worriedly asked, "Reynal, are you okay?" She thought about the possibility of awakening, remembering how Carmot had. But unlike him, her body showed no signs of glowing, only pain and exhaustion. Gently touching the crow's head, Carmot called out, "Reynal, wake up, Reynal." Reynal, feeling drained, considered the only possibility: it must be diarrhea. "This is why you shouldn't eat random things like I did." Misunderstanding, the prince thought Reynal had died and held her, crying out in despair, "Reynal." A maid with purple hair entered and reported, "I don't think the bird is seriously harmed." Carmot, disbelieving, looked at the crow lying on the bed, pale-faced. "If that's the case, why is it in such pain?" The maid explained, "I've tried everything, but there's been no improvement. If there was an issue, the divine power would have healed it by now. This is very strange." Hearing the explanation, Carmot looked back at the exhausted Reynal, anger building. "Reynal is burning up like a furnace. If it's not an illness, what is the cause?" He ordered the maid to leave. "Leave us." The maid quickly complied, "Yes, sir." Carmot buried his face in his hands, filled with regret. "It's all my fault. If I hadn't carelessly shown the Coven rock in front of Reynal, this wouldn't have happened." Listening to Reynal's labored breathing, Carmot thought, "The only thing I can do now is stay by its side." His fear and helplessness grew, praying for Reynal to recover. "Please wake up. No matter how much trouble you cause, I will forgive you." As night enveloped everything, Carmot unknowingly fell asleep beside Reynal. Suddenly, Reynal's eyes opened, sparkling. Her soul seemed to drift into a world filled with glittering objects. "Where is this?" In the dream, she looked at her transparent hands in surprise. "These aren't bird wings. Does this mean?" A thought struck her. "Am I truly dead?" Immediately, Reynal's soul was terrified by that thought. "No, I don't want to die like this. It's so unfair. I've suffered living in the body of a crow, and now this? Moreover, there are still many things I haven't done with Carmot." But suddenly, Reynal felt something and placed her hand on her chest. Suddenly, there was a very bright light, growing ever brighter. Feathered wings suddenly spread out, and a crow was spreading its wings wide. Looking at the floating soul of Reynal, glowing all over, Reynal's soul opened its eyes wide, as if attracted by some light. "From a long time ago, I saw a blackbird flying close to the sun. With the help of a wolf, it was able to spread its wings wide." The legendary story of the crow was replayed in Reynal's subconscious, and she dreamed until she remembered nothing more. Meanwhile, Carmot, who had fallen asleep on the bed, noticed some light movements. "Maybe it's about to wake up." Carmot sat up, rubbing his eyes and starting to wake up. "Oh my, I fell asleep." He hurriedly looked at Reynal. "Reynal, are you okay?" But the scene before him made Carmot's eyes widen in surprise. Lying on the bed was not the crow, but a person. A girl with long black hair, her white ankles surrounded by a tuft of black feathers. A beautiful girl was sleeping soundly on the bed. The sight made Karmat jump up, exclaiming in shock, "Who are you?" Around the girl's neck was still the necklace with a glittering emerald stone, a gift that Karmat had given to the crow. Obviously, this girl was Reynal. Karmat looked at Reynal, who was breathing evenly and soundly asleep on the bed, feeling puzzled. Did she come to assassinate me? But then he quickly dismissed the thought. No way. How could an assassin have such soft hands? Besides, what kind of assassin would sleep so peacefully in front of their target? Seeing the gemstone on her necklace still glittering, Karmat reached out to hold a lock of her black hair. Examining it, he noticed it was exactly the same color as Reynal's feathers. At that moment, Karmat was certain of his conclusion. It's definitely Reynal. He gently touched Reynal's cheek and whispered, "Because of the Coven rock, you've turned into a human, haven't you?" Just then, Reynal drowsily opened her eyes and slowly sat up, still feeling sleepy and rubbing her eyes. Her cuteness made Karmat feel flustered. "What's wrong, Karmat?" Reynal asked. She still hadn't realized she had turned into a human and grumbled, "It's not time to eat yet." Suddenly, she became fully awake, looking at her hands in front of her and exclaiming, "Huh? Where are my wings?" Reynal was bewildered. "What's going on?" She stood up abruptly, panicking, but Karmat lifted her up, holding her tightly, so she could only flail her arms and legs like a child. "Where's the mirror? I need to see myself." Karmat spoke up. "Wait, calm down. That's the way to the door." Karmat reminded Reynal, "The mirror is over here." He then led Reynal to the mirror, smiling gently, "Take your time and look at your reflection closely." Reynal, surprised, hurried closer and carefully observed her appearance. She thought to herself, "It really is different. Completely different from my previous body." Remembering her former appearance, Reynal trembled as she touched her current doll-like face, with smooth skin, crystal-clear eyes, and soft, shiny black hair. "Is all this because I ate the magical stone?" Reynal still couldn't believe it was real, but after waking up, "I look so weak. Is this really me?" She felt somewhat dissatisfied with her current body, recalling her previous strong physique from carrying goods, cleaning, and taking care of pets all day. She became upset. "If I had to become a human, at least I should have strong muscles like before. Gosh, it feels like muscle atrophy. What's with these tiny arms? How am I supposed to beat up that Llewellyn like this?" Meanwhile, Llewellyn, whose name was mentioned, scratched his ear and cursed, "Who the hell is talking about me?" Back in the room, Reynal tried to reassure herself. "No, think positively. At least I'm human again, and there are good things about being human. I don't have to stay in that cramped birdcage anymore, and I don't have to fight for my life with those larvae anymore." Reynal glanced sideways, most importantly. Seeing Karmat standing behind her, smiling gently, in a way she had never seen before, her heart melted. He asked her, "Have you finished looking in the mirror, Reynal?" Tears began to well up in Reynal's eyes. "All this time, I wanted to do so many things but couldn't, and it made me so frustrated and miserable. One of my long-held wishes has come true, now I can hug him as much as I want." Without hesitation, she quickly stepped forward and threw herself into Karmat's arms, hugging her prince tightly. Karmat, taken aback by her embrace, softly called out, "Reynal." His sweet voice made her unable to hold back anymore, and the tears started falling freely. Now she could talk to him as much as she wanted, so she kept calling his name, Karmat. Reynal cried heavily for a while until she calmed down. Karmat, sitting next to her and unsure of what to do, gently asked, "Reynal, are you okay now?" But seeing her condition, he knew she wasn't okay at all. She had cried so much that her eyes were swollen and her nose was bright red. She was still sniffling as she replied, "Hick hick, maybe." He helplessly stroked her face and said, "If you're okay now, can you tell me why you were crying? Was it because you were too surprised by the sudden transformation?" Reynal responded, "No, that's not it." Reynal struggled to find an answer. "How do I explain this? Should I tell him that I was originally a human but one day, out of the blue, I was turned into a crow, and in my sorrow and struggle, I found him and followed him. Then, when I saw the Coven rock, I realized this was the world from a game I played 3 years ago. So, I followed him to find clues to return to my world. But somehow, my feelings for him grew stronger. Now, I suddenly turned back into a human and felt overwhelmed with joy and cried. But if I say all that, it's too complicated. And if I reveal everything, he'll know the truth that he's just a character in some game and that his misfortunes were just for someone else's entertainment." Reynal felt uneasy. "Of course, I can't let him know everything." She thought of another way and decided to give a more suitable explanation. She slowly replied, "I was just really scared when I ate the Coven rock and almost died." Karmat remained silent for a moment before saying, "I felt the same way, Reynal." Reynal was a bit confused. What do you mean? Carmot spoke honestly. I didn't know what I would do if you didn't wake up. My vision went dark, and it felt like the world was collapsing around me. I even thought it would be better if I could just lie there and take the pain for you. Carmot lowered his head near hers with a smile. But luckily, you woke up safely. Now we can sit beside each other and talk. He gently wrapped an arm around her shoulders and held her close. You have no idea how happy and relieved I am, Reynal. Thank you for waking up safely. Reynal was caught off guard by his embrace, her face flushing and her mind in a whirl. She felt as if her entire body was on fire. What should I do? When I was a crow, his affectionate demeanor was already overwhelming. Seeing his handsome face filled with tenderness right now is just too much. My little heart can't handle it. Thinking she might do something reckless if she stayed in this situation, Reynal desperately wished she could turn back into a crow, even if just for a moment. Suddenly, with a flash, she transformed back into a crow right in front of Carmot. Reynal was shocked. Ka! What the? She flew around in frantic circles, squawking loudly. Why? Oh my goodness, what just happened? Crying out in despair, she wailed, why did I turn back into a crow? I worked so hard to become human. Why give it to me only to take it back? Recalling the game posters she'd seen, she lamented, I'm not a test subject for some game. Do I have to pay real money for this? Flapping her wings wildly, she cried, Caw, caw! Give me my body back. Carmot held her gently, trying to calm her down. Reynal, calm down. It seems you're very startled by the sudden change, but it's okay. It's just because you're not used to it yet. With some practice, you'll get the hang of it. Reynal sniffled, feeling bewildered. Practice? What do you mean? Carmot gently placed her on a chair and explained, yes, practice. He demonstrated by transforming into a large, golden wolf. Even in this form, he looked magnificent, making Reynal's heart race. She couldn't help but think, he looks strange, but this wolf is still so handsome. Carmot, in his wolf form, seemed to glow with a golden light. Instead of appearing terrifying, he looked beautiful. She thought to herself, a golden wolf? I've never seen anything like this in my past life. Suddenly, the wolf stuck out its tongue and touched her beak, making both their hearts race. Carmot whispered to her, you're adorable. He then transformed back into his human form, sat calmly, and asked, see? It's easy, right? Reynal stretched out her wing and said, absolutely not. I don't get it at all. Carmot, resting his chin on his hand, looked thoughtful. Really, Reynal? You still don't understand? Was that not enough of an example? Reynal thought to herself, Carmot, you're naturally talented at this, but that doesn't help me right now. Understanding her frustration, Carmot came up with an idea. Alright, if I explain it further, maybe you just need to focus on the form you want to become. When I turned into a wolf, I was thinking about becoming a wolf. Now, you just need to think about wanting to be human again. Reynal crossed her arms, looking confused. So all I have to do is think I want to be human and it works? Seriously? If it were that easy, I'd have won the lottery in my past life. Carmot scratched his chin and sighed. I guess my explanation wasn't clear enough. As soon as Reynal thought about becoming a crow again, she suddenly transformed back into a human, surprising them both. Delighted, Reynal exclaimed, look, it worked. Carmot smiled brightly. See? I told you it was easy. The bright sunlight streaming through the window lit up the table, which was laden with food. The aroma of steaming meat filled the air. The dishes were beautifully and elegantly arranged. Reynal picked up some food with a fork and brought it to her mouth, her face glowing with satisfaction. She thought to herself, this is happiness. She continued to eat eagerly, her eyes sparkling. It's been so long since I had human food, and this is the first time I'm dining with the Crown Prince. This is truly a reward for all the hardships and misfortunes I've endured. Carmot watched her indulgently and said, eat slowly. Carmot's eyes remained fixed on Reynal as she ate. Suddenly, he asked, you're quite skilled with a knife and fork. Did you already know how to use them? Reynal froze at his question, inwardly cursing. Damn it. I promised to keep my secret about being human. But I got too carried away with the food and used the utensils out of habit. She broke into a cold sweat, quickly coming up with an excuse. I've been watching you use them a lot, so I learned from that. Carmot accepted her explanation. I see. I was just curious because it seemed so natural. Reynal thought to herself that she needed to be more careful in the future. She set her fork down on the table and said to him, Carmot, I'm finished eating. Carmot replied, I'll call the servants to clean up, so can you turn back into a crow for a while? Reynal stood up obediently. All right, I understand, she said, closing her eyes and preparing to turn back into a crow. A moment later, she transformed back into a crow. Reynal was happy, thinking, great, I've mastered the transformation now. Carmot, on the other hand, ordered the servants, please clean up the table. The servant bowed, yes, your highness. Reynal reflected, being a crow has its inconveniences, but it also has benefits that humans don't have. If I can use both forms well, it will definitely be advantageous. She looked at Carmot thoughtfully, that's probably why he kept my ability to become human a secret. The fewer people who know about this power, the better. The servant left the room, saying, we'll take our leave now, your highness. After that, Carmot bowed his head in contemplation and said, I'm sorry, Reynal. Reynal, confused, asked, why are you apologizing? Carmot clenched his fists and explained, because of my greed, I hid your human form. But I have a favor to ask of you, so I did it. Reynal was surprised and wondered what kind of favor Carmot would ask of her, imagining scenarios of fighting or assassinating Llewellyn. I'm a bit scared of assassinations. I hope he doesn't ask me to do that, she thought. Carmot, with a soft voice, said, I want you to stay safe, Reynal. Reynal, puzzled, asked, safe? I thought you wanted to use my powers. Carmot, clenching his fists, slowly explained, my brother, Llewellyn, is very arrogant and ambitious. If he desires something, he'll take it all, no matter what. I hate to say this, but it's dangerous for you to stay in human form in the palace right now. Reynal's face fell, thinking it would be easier to remain ignorant as a crow. Carmot gently touched her cheek, saying, please wait a little longer, Reynal. I promise to make this a place where you can transform freely. Reynal blushed at Carmot's kind words. She held onto his sleeve and said, okay, I understand, Carmot. But can I still stay by your side and help you until that day comes? Carmot, looking at her tenderly, said, of course. He hugged her happily, while in a crystal ball, two figures, Reynal and Carmot, were embraced. The atmosphere was ominous as Llewellyn looked at the crystal with a sinister smile, I've gained more than I expected. In his private chamber, Marquis Wilhelm cursed himself, how could I fail? My plan was perfect, the crown prince should have been dead. Wilhelm thought back, I made sure Gaelnos and Carmot were separated, and I heard reports that all of Carmot's knights were dead. Still, Carmot survived, shining with an aura that Wilhelm couldn't comprehend. Not only that, but he declared his determination to claim the throne, Wilhelm muttered to himself. I can't predict how things will change now, he thought, feeling frustrated. The only reason the nobles supported Llewellyn, who lacks the qualities of a true emperor, is because he awakened the symbol of the noble wolf, Wilhelm reflected. The power of that symbol was affirmed by the warrior god, Calian of the tiger tribe. Only the wolf of the von Freck family can bring peace to the empire, Calian had said. Wilhelm decided, that's why I sided with Llewellyn. I thought even if he lacked the qualities of an emperor, with the help of the vassals, we could make up for it. Wilhelm continued, that was the only way to bring glory to the empire, but now, looking at the present situation, he was filled with regret and worry. A black crow with purple eyes cawed loudly as it flew through the sky. Wilhelm panicked upon seeing it on Carmot's shoulder. A crow? The bird of death, here with the crown prince, he thought, recognizing it as a bad omen. The crow glared at Wilhelm with its purple eyes, as Carmot asked, Marquis Wilhelm, why did you come to see me? Do you seek forgiveness for your assassination attempt? The crow on Carmot's shoulder exuded a menacing aura, making Wilhelm realize the warning. I'm not here to seek forgiveness, Wilhelm said, sweating profusely. I came because, although I used to think that anyone ordered by Prince Llewellyn had to follow his commands, now my thoughts have changed. Carmot, smiling eerily, said, changed, you say? What do you mean? Carmot continued, you thought only those who awakened could be emperor, so you sided with Llewellyn and tried to kill me. But you failed and were cast aside, so now you come to me? Wilhelm knelt, bowing deeply. I understand the consequences of my actions. Please punish me as you see fit, he said. Carmot responded, I know your abilities, but that doesn't mean I trust you. Once a traitor, always a traitor. If you stay by my side, others will always look at you with suspicion. Can you live with that? Wilhelm, hiding his joy, replied, that is all I can hope for. Reynal and Carmot chatted later. Reynal asked, was that man the one who tried to kill you? Why did you save him? Carmot answered, it's complicated, but accepting him brings many benefits. It will shake Llewellyn's noble supporters and bring more to our side. Reynal pressed, but weren't you angry? Carmot replied, of course, but controlling my emotions is necessary. He patted her head, and thanks to him, I met you. Reynal blushed and turned away, I guess that's true. Carmot laughed and asked, Reynal, why did you help me back then? A human's life shouldn't matter to a crow. Reynal hesitated, thinking, because I don't like eating corpses or larvae, but instead said, your golden hair shining in the sun was so beautiful, I had to help. Karmit, embarrassed, said, sorry, I thought you were a bird person. He stood up, if you love my hair so much, take good care of it from now on. He leaned in and kissed her forehead, make me someone you're proud of, Reynal. Blushing, Reynal turned into a crow and fell over. Karmit laughed as she thought, why did I transform now? At this moment, in the room of Prince Karmit, there was an exceedingly quiet space. Prince Karmit, with his hands on his head, his handsome face darkened, exuded an aura of fearsome worry. After a while, he suddenly spoke, I have a concern, Galenose. Hearing Karmit say that, Galenose couldn't help but be alarmed, thinking to himself, Prince Karmit is worried? The room was filled with a dreadful silence. Prince Karmit continued, yes, how should I assess this situation? Even I can't come up with an exact answer. Hearing that, Galenose asked, Prince Karmit, what exactly is it that worries you so much? The atmosphere in the palace lately has been a good opportunity for you, hasn't it? Recently, due to the shift of Marquis Wilhelm, the palace has been stirred up. Because Marquis Wilhelm is a pillar of Folin, most of the nobles who had declared neutrality have secretly come to you and made clear their decision. Thus, your faction has gradually grown stronger, your highness. Galenose stood beside Karmit and wondered, the situation is very good, but why does he look so serious? At this moment, Karmit was still deeply troubled, holding his head in contemplation. Seeing Prince Karmit in such deep thought, Galenose couldn't hide the worry on his face, slowly swallowing as he thought, this is definitely not a normal matter. It must be something very serious. Without hesitation, Galenose gripped his sword tightly, ready to draw it, and said, Your Highness, please tell me. With a determined face, Galenose gripped his gleaming sword tightly and shouted, I, Galenose, as your protective sword, am willing to die to help you resolve your worries. Before Galeno's enthusiasm, the prince felt somewhat reassured. Karmit softly said, Reynal doesn't want to follow me. At this moment, Galenose felt extremely awkward and sheepishly responded, yes. Prince Karmit began to recount, my crow, no matter where I went before, she would always follow. Memories flashed back to Prince Karmit. Today, Reynal shyly scratched her head and said, sorry, Karmit, I want to stay in my room today. Karmit continued, earlier, even though I asked her to come out with me, she refused. What should I do? Have I done something wrong to Reynal? So that's it, Prince Karmit was worried because his little crow didn't follow him today. Galenose endured as much as he could and thought to himself, ha, that damned crow. Gus jealously cursed the crow for monopolizing the spot beside the prince and now even causing him worry. Truly a cunning bird. The image of Prince Karmit being so absorbed in his affection for the crow, seemingly forgetting Galenose, made the loyal guard seethe with jealousy. Galenose then thought and blamed himself, this is my fault. If I had saved the prince during the assassination attempt, he wouldn't be dependent on that bird. Thinking this, Galeno's face darkened, but it's too late now, things have turned out this way. I can only do my best to make him forget that crow. After a while, Galenose spoke up, so, your highness is worried because your beloved bird isn't by your side. Though I don't understand the temperament of animals and can't give you advice, to fill that void, I will always be loyal and stay by your side. At this, Galenose seemed to burst with determination, his face full of killing intent to assert his close loyalty, even if I have to give my life, I will always be loyal to your highness. If you want my finger, I will cut it off, if you want my heart, I will take it out. Whatever you want, just say it. Contrary to Galeno's fiery spirit, Prince Karmit responded with a weary and anxious face, dismissing Galenose, no need, just leave. More than anyone, perhaps Galenose was the one suffering the most at this moment. Meanwhile, the palace maids were busy decorating the palace. Is this decoration also being changed? Yes, everything is being replaced as ordered. From her perch atop a cabinet, the prince's beloved crow, Reynal, observed the bustling palace. She thought, everyone is so busy today. I wish I had something to do too. I've given up flying freely to endure the boredom of staying in one corner. Reynal recalled when Wilhelm decided to join Karmit on this path. Of course, the nobles siding with Llewellyn will waver, and more will support us. She imagined herself by Emperor Karmit's side, the image of a deathly crow on his shoulder. Thinking of how she was perceived by those in the palace, Reynal lamented, no matter how ignorant I am of this world's politics, I can tell those looks are not good for the future emperor. She concluded that until she found a solution, she should stay away from him. Reynal looked around, thinking of her initial goal. I was supposed to oversee the workers, but even a fool like Llewellyn wouldn't send unqualified people. If there were any suspicious people, I wouldn't be able to detect them anyway. Suddenly, Reynal noticed the lavish decorations, feeling an urge to bite them. Even if it's in my nature as a crow, I shouldn't indulge like this. Then, an idea struck her. Why didn't I think of this before? One of the maids arranging flowers turned around, seeing Reynal holding a blue-green flower in her beak, ready to give it to her. The maid screamed in fear, "Why is this deathly bird coming to me?" She hugged herself, crying out, "Why me among all these people?" Reynal, however, cheerfully placed the flower in the maid's hand, surprising her. "Is this for me?" the maid asked. Reynal nodded, thinking, it may take time, but if someone accepts my gesture, things might get better. Just then, Carmot approached, asking, "Are you giving flowers to the maids?" Reynal flew to Carmot's hand. "My little crow seems to like you. Accept the flower." The maid, bewildered, responded, "But this flower is worth more than a month's salary." Carmot smiled, "You've worked hard for me, so you deserve it. Keep working hard." The maid, still flustered, replied, "Yes, your highness." She thought, this deathly bird led to something special for me. Have I misjudged it? Carmot took Reynal back to his room, asking, "Lately, you haven't wanted to go out with me. Do you prefer playing with the maids?" Reynal, feeling guilty, stammered, "No, it's not that. Everyone dislikes me. If I stay, all will leave you." Carmot, no longer cold, gently said, "So you avoid me to make others happy?" Reynal recalled, "You were wary of me at first too." Carmot, feeling a pang of guilt, remembered calling her a damn bird. He apologized, "I'm sorry for that. I'll strive to improve little by little, and someday people will think well of me." Carmot sighed, admiring her resilience, "You shine brightly despite being disliked. Your presence is a blessing to me." Reynal, surprised, looked at Carmot. He took her hand, "If anyone avoids me because of you, they aren't worth knowing. You're my only comfort in this stifling palace. Don't distance yourself from me for others' sake. I'll do anything for you." Thinking of all the riches and food he could provide, Carmot looked at Reynal with pure affection. Reynal, moved, thought, "I don't want riches or treasures, I just want you." She asked, "Could you find me a fellow crow?" Realizing her mistake, she muttered, "Oh no, I spoke out of instinct." Carmot, heartbroken, asked, "Another crow?" Reynal quickly reassured him, "No, it's not like that." Carmot, looking deeply into her eyes, said, "I can't do that." Reynal, sensing his worry, asked, "What's wrong?" Carmot awkwardly held her hand, struggling with the idea of another crow. He thought, if she wants, I'll hold a contest to find the best crow. But I don't want to. There's no one more special to me than you, Reynal. Breaking from his thoughts, Carmot called out to Reynal, pulling her close. He gazed into her eyes, "If you're human, I can be your partner." He smiled mischievously, hugging her. Reynal blushed, thinking, at this rate, I might say something foolish. Turning into a crow, she flew away. Carmot laughed, "Reynal, why are you always so shy?" Meanwhile, Reynal, hiding, fumed, "Just wait. I may be inexperienced, but I'll surprise you someday." Carmot gently lifted his head, his eyes looking into the distance, filled with deep thoughts. "The truth is, whenever I'm with Reynal, I forget all my worries and feel truly at ease. The burdens of the throne, the conflicts among the nobility, the deep-seated suspicions, and the fears of death, all of these become meaningless whenever she takes my hand and smiles purely, without any calculation. Her hair like the night sky and her beautiful violet eyes looking at me make me feel that even death could be embraced peacefully. She has given me great strength to do anything." Carmot thought to himself, "Indeed, it is clear that with her, who has given up the freedom of the open sky to be by my side, she will help me bring the future closer." His heart fluttered with emotion. Carmot whispered to himself, "Surely I have." Then he suddenly turned around, looking up at the chandelier where Reynal was hiding, his gaze so passionate that it startled her. Knowing she had been discovered, Reynal turned her face away in embarrassment. Her cute action made Carmot smile until his eyes squinted. He silently promised himself, "My dear Reynal, when all dangers are gone, I will surely tell you that." At that moment, the scene shifted to Carmot's office. The furniture there was all gilded and glittering. Carmot was sitting, handling official documents, with Reynal by his side. Her mood at this time was quite downcast. She thought, in the end, I couldn't win against Carmot's persuasion, so I followed him to this office. After looking at him for a long time, she shook her head, putting on a self-indulgent look, saying to herself, "Really helpless, who told Carmot to want to be with me like this?" Then she turned away, looking around the room, thinking, since I'm here anyway, while Carmot is working, I might as well look around a bit. Then suddenly Reynal noticed something different. "Oh, in the time I wasn't here, something has changed, hasn't it? It's more splendid, isn't it?" At this moment, some new things had appeared in the room. Smelling carefully, Reynal discovered something unusual. She raised her wing to stroke her chin, pondering, it's normal for the prince's bedroom to change decorations often, but why the office? And he's been so busy lately? It doesn't seem like he has had a moment's spare time to pay attention to this. What if he just exhausts himself like this? She felt the need to ask Carmit, thinking this was precisely a situation in a romantic fantasy game. First, though, Galenose was standing right outside the office, so she needed to transform to ask quietly, then turn back into a raven. Outside, Galenose, not yet realizing he had become redundant to the couple, was still cursing, that damned raven. I can assist the prince just as well. After transforming back into a human, Reynal approached and whispered to him, Carmit, I have something to ask. Seeing her approach, he immediately asked, what is it? Reynal, curious, said, the new decorations in this office, did you order them? Hearing her question, he turned his face down and asked back, decorations? Changes? He cast a sharp gaze around the study, then stepped over to the spot she had just mentioned, and responded, I never ordered such arrangements. Immediately, he called his guard in. Galenose, upon entering, received the order and shouted loudly, summon Marquis Namuel here at once. Upon being summoned, Marquis Namuel got to work immediately. Namuel approached a vase on the table, channeling power into it. Suddenly, from the vase revealed a network of barriers. After a moment of observation, he concluded that it contained a recording orb. This might be a bit tricky, Marquis Namuel said. Carmit, confused, asked, a recording orb? What's that? Hearing this question, Namuel patiently explained, it's a magical tool that records the things you do within a set period. As you can see, this intermediary has been enchanted, and the magic has integrated with it. Fortunately, it cannot record sound, but the images it captures could become a critical weakness for you. Upon hearing this, Carmit lowered his head and said, I know who did this. Noticing his mood sinking, Marquis Namuel slowly continued, yes, it's likely that person ordered it, but there's a problem. It's hard to detect the recording orb because it's been enchanted with invisibility and visual deception magic. Even a skilled knight like you, Galenose, wouldn't be able to sense it. It's that strong of a magic. At this, Galenose was startled and exclaimed, you mean? Namuel lowered his hand and said, yes, it's highly probable that a high-level mage has intervened. Not only that, it must be a mage more skilled than I am. 5 surveillance devices were placed on the table, and a voice reported, a total of 5 hidden cameras were found in the study. The Black Crow, startled and sweating, exclaimed in surprise, so many of them? Carmit hugged the Black Crow tightly, while the crow thought to itself, even though Carmit is a prince of the Empire, he hasn't secured the right to succession and has fallen into such danger. The Black Crow continued to sink into its own thoughts, realizing it was getting entangled in a political struggle. One picked up the vase and shook it, staring intently at it before saying to Carmit, no hidden cameras were found in the other decorations, so it seems they were mixed in various places. To be safe, we should handle all the remaining decorations. Carmit also stared at the vase in Namuel's hand and added, if they find out that we've discovered these, they'll surely be flustered. Namuel shook his head, took something out, and whispered, it's still okay. Namuel placed the hidden camera on the table with a clank and continued, the recording time for these cameras is at most 1 day, and all of these have already exceeded their usage time. At least for now, the other side is not aware of the current situation. Carmit, still hugging the Black Crow tightly, replied, Namuel, I've stayed in the study for so long that they've missed the exchange time, right? Namuel nodded, yes, that's fortunate. Carmit, sweating and worried, said, then we need to think of a countermeasure. What should we do next? Galenose's face darkened, and a loud noise rang in his mind as he became angry with himself, blaming himself for not protecting His Highness properly. If he had supported His Highness more adequately, he might have prevented this from happening. Despite entering His Highness's study many times, he hadn't detected a single hidden camera. How can I claim to be His Highness's right hand, he thought, feeling remorseful. While Galenose was beating himself up, Namuel and Carmit continued discussing the hidden cameras. First, we need to check if there are any such devices in His Highness's room, Carmit said, furrowing his eyebrows and responding sharply, yes, check it thoroughly, Marquis Namuel. Just then, a rustling sound was heard. Carmit quickly drew his sword, ready to defend. Galenose, don't do anything rash. Look at Galenose, Namuel couldn't do anything without laugh. The Black Crow on the table looked up, watching Namuel place each found hidden camera on the table, feeling relieved that they had finally discovered the cameras in Carmit's room. As a result, there was a big commotion in the royal palace. A hand was raised high, accompanied by a commanding voice, "Detain all the servants who have been in the study and bedroom of Prince Karmat recently." All the servants in the palace panicked, struggling and shouting loudly. The magnificent palace was in chaos. In contrast to the turmoil, the butler bowed slightly and calmly said, "The order is to arrest everyone without exception. If there is any resistance, use force if necessary." A green-haired servant, frightened by two soldiers handcuffing him, pleaded, "Wait a minute." Nadia, eyes closed, sweating, spoke fearfully amidst the scene of the servants being taken away. "Why are you doing this? What did we do wrong?" At the same time, Nadia thought, so it has come to this. Remembering the scene from that day, Nadia recalled kneeling before Llewellyn, Karmat's younger brother, silently listening to Llewellyn's instructions. "Place the decorations I gave you in Karmat's room. They are magically enchanted to go unnoticed. Those fools won't figure it out anyway," Llewellyn had said. Nadia, trembling all over, with tears in her eyes, heard Llewellyn's sinister and gentle threat about her sick younger brother's life. "If you refuse this order or reveal it, your sick brother will have an interesting experience." Nadia burst into tears, but Llewellyn, indifferent, continued, "If not, I've been quite irritated lately. I could use a new toy to vent my frustrations. So do a good job." Hearing Llewellyn's words, Nadia collapsed to the ground, her face down, feeling utterly helpless. Nadia clenched her hands tightly, tears falling on the back of her hand, thinking, "What should I do now?" Nadia, unable to hold back any longer, burst into tears and cried out, "What about my poor brother?" Back in the palace, Namuel bowed before Karmat and reported, "I've detained all the servants, and I plan to start the interrogation immediately." Karmat, clasping his hands behind his back, responded, "Considering my brother's nature, he might have used ruthless methods, threatening someone who couldn't resist him. Ensure the utmost safety for that person." Namuel replied, "Understood." Suddenly, a series of noises, from the sound of a falling object to the creaking of a wooden door and the hissing of the wind, filled the air. A figure, cloaked in black from head to toe, appeared and knelt before Karmat. "Did you call for me, my lord Karmat?" Karmat gently instructed, "Buzzcourt, monitor to ensure the butler follows my orders." Upon hearing Karmat's command, Buzzcourt nodded slightly and disappeared like a wisp of smoke, as if he had never been there. Hearing the rustling sound from Buzzcourt's disappearance, Karmat sighed in relief, such a headache. Namuel, after completing Karmat's orders, returned to report, "All the enchanted items we found have been dealt with, extinguishing the potential threat." Before Namuel could finish, Karmat interrupted, "We already know their origin. No need for further analysis. Destroy them immediately." Meanwhile, Buzzcourt, deep in thought about how to complete Karmat's orders, realized he couldn't identify the high-level mage who had allied with Llewellyn. Usually, mages despised getting involved in political affairs due to their pride. Reflecting further, Buzzcourt thought, no wonder Lord Wilhelm refused so easily. He must have had another powerful ally. Recalling a sword emitting a blood-red light that could kill myriad creatures, Buzzcourt pondered why this power wasn't used for assassination. Perhaps it was to create legitimacy for the conflict among the hungry wolves. As Buzzcourt came to a realization, he reminded himself, with the Emperor still alive, they need to act this way within the palace. But after, he steeled himself and thought, I need to focus more. There are other issues. Who knows how many secrets Llewellyn has uncovered through enchanted items. Buzzcourt then transformed into a white-furred wolf, glancing at the black crow perched on the table, thinking, fortunately, it seems my awakening has not been exposed. If they knew, there would have been a reaction. But since everything is quiet, I must have narrowly avoided the recording time of the hidden cameras. Returning to Karmat, he looked towards the black crow and thought, if so, the real issue is Reynal. Reynal stayed in this room for a long time and has transformed into a human several times. Could it be that she's in shock? As if hearing Karmat's thoughts, the black crow perched on top of the cupboard cawed. Karmat looked towards the crow and gently coaxed, Reynal, it's safe now. The hidden cameras have been dealt with, and the room's security has been enhanced. Outside, Gaelno seemed engulfed in a passionate fire as he stood firmly with his subordinates, saying loudly, for now, Gaenos and his men will protect this place. At least temporarily, the servants instigated by Llewellyn won't approach again. Inside Karmat's room, Karmat embraced the black crow, listening to its cawing and gently whispering, Reynal, there's nothing to worry about anymore. Karmat looked up at Reynel, who was still in the form of a black raven. He raised a hand as if to gently help the raven down and softly said, Come on, can't you come down here just for a bit? Reynel, still in the form of the raven, seemed to ponder Karmat's words for a moment before suddenly turning away, as if not wanting to hear what Karmat was saying anymore. Karmat's face fell, and he lowered his head in thought. She probably needs some time to calm down. Then he gently continued. I understand, Raynell. I will wait until you are ready. But Raynell's soul seemed to be held back by something. The black raven began to awaken, but its expression was still dazed, as if not understanding what was happening. Oh, what's going on? I need to change back into a human and tell Carmit that I'm okay, but my body isn't listening to me. Raynell's soul flashed back to when Carmit held her in his arms in the form of a black raven, checking the decorations that might contain hidden cameras, and thought. Clearly, when Carmit checked the decorations, I wasn't like this. Then she realized something. Right, this state might be from the moment I felt fear. This state is the raven's instinct to be wary of danger, so it won't let me out? Then Raynell's soul seemed to see the black raven perched on her to guard her soul, preventing her from turning back into a human. Suddenly, Raynell shouted. But if I keep hiding like this, I won't be able to do anything. Let me out now. The black raven seemed to resist Raynell's thoughts, turning sharply to one side, firmly replying. No, it's too dangerous outside. Raynell retorted in frustration. That's the same everywhere, but at least it's safe next to Carmit. The black raven stared at Raynell and asked. Who can be sure of that? The raven's wings flapped noisily, accompanied by a voice responding. Because in the future, Carmit will become the emperor. The black raven calmly replied. That is Carmit's future, not mine. Have you forgotten those infinite future branches? Images of Carmit's future gradually appeared in Raynell's mind, and the black raven continued. No matter where, there's no mention of a bird's death. So, you can't trust anyone. Raynell, you can't trust anyone. Carmit sat on the sofa in his room, his hands tightly clasped together, waiting. Raynell still hasn't come down yet? Carmit glanced at a sumptuous table of food, with shrimp, sandwiches, none of which had been touched. He worried. What if she faints? Carmit put his hand on his chin and analyzed. Maybe animals are so wary that they wouldn't dare approach the food if there's a stranger around? Thinking about this, Carmit felt disappointed and exclaimed. Clearly, I am not the safest person for Raynell. Just then, Carmit stood up abruptly, walking and speaking to the black raven perched high up. Raynell, I will step out for a bit so you can come down and eat. If someone intrudes, just call out. Hearing the click from the wooden door, confirming Carmit had left the room, the black raven flapped its wings and flew down to the sumptuous table of food that had been carefully prepared, sighing. Now I can be alone. As soon as it finished, the black raven transformed into Bucot. He casually whistled, then wriggled and transformed gradually, saying, regardless of the country, hiding in the prince's room is quite difficult. The future emperor, what is it with a bird with such little magic power anyway? Still, I have to please him, right? After that, a necklace with a blue gemstone fell straight to the ground. Raynell woke up, feeling her whole body aching. Ugh, it hurts. Where is this? Raynell heard voices talking. TSK, I told you to be careful when bringing her back. What if she's hurt? Raynell forced her eyes open and faintly saw two figures. The voice felt familiar, that annoying voice belonged to Llewellyn. Opposite him was a figure fully covered, face obscured. The cloaked man responded. I'm sorry, she resisted fiercely. Raynell recognized the voice. It sounds like the person who kidnapped me? Unable to see their faces, the other man suggested. Should I call someone to treat her? The prince waved his hand and shook his head. No need, this will do. Llewellyn smiled, but his face was malicious and cruel as he said. If she's in good condition, she might escape. Even though I'm annoyed that she's hurt, this is better, isn't it? Hearing Llewellyn say this, Raynell glared at him disdainfully, thinking to herself something she had long wondered about. She thought he was a kind of trash that couldn't be recycled, but he always acted like he was the center of the universe. Did he think that behaving this way would make him great? How pathetic and rustic. It seemed the two had finished talking. Llewellyn signaled the mysterious man to leave. Now that it's done, you can go. Until I call, you don't need to come. I don't want any interference. The mysterious man obeyed. As you wish, future emperor. With a swish, he vanished. Llewellyn stepped forward and said, well then. With a swift motion, Llewellyn grabbed Raynell's wing. His gaze was menacing and crude, and his grip on her wing caused her pain, making her droop her head in exhaustion. Llewellyn smiled dangerously and said, I'll slowly get acquainted with my new pet, won't I? Raynell struggled and squawked, cursing at Llewellyn. You lunatic, let me go. Of course, Llewellyn didn't care about the bird's resistance. He said in a deep voice. Although I want to break your neck and make you pay for scratching my nose, but... He smiled wickedly and continued. If you turn into a human and stay by my side, I'll pretend it didn't happen. Not only that, I'll also love you, understand? the love of the future emperor. He pulled Raynell closer by her wing, grinning mockingly. This is an honor those nasty birds can't enjoy. Raynell was extremely angry. Surprise, this lunatic. Does he like my human form that much? Raynell flapped her wings furiously, hitting Llewellyn in the face, and squawked loudly as if to say, "Are you crazy? No friends, huh? If you were in the place I used to live, you'd be ground to dust." Llewellyn, his face reddening from the blow, gritted his teeth angrily and growled, throwing Raynell down forcefully and shouting, "You damn crow! How dare you defy me?" Raynell crashed into the corner of the cage with a painful thud. Llewellyn, still furious, pointed at her and said loudly, "Yes, your master is that immature Carmet, but it's over now. That half-human won't be able to protect you anymore. You belong to me now." After the harsh impact, Raynell trembled in pain and whispered to herself, "Immature and half-human?" From his words, she also realized something. Of course, he doesn't know that Carmet has awakened. Raynell breathed a sigh of relief. Even though I don't know when he started placing hidden cameras, it's fortunate that only I was exposed. She blamed herself. If I had known this would happen, I should have monitored those entering Carmet's room more closely. It's too late now. But quickly, Raynell regained her composure and told herself. From the beginning, a more advanced mage than Lord Namuel had already placed concealing magic in the decorations. I shouldn't blame myself for not noticing that. Raynell resolved firmly. Now, I must focus on thinking of a way to survive. Llewellyn tapped on the birdcage, saying, "You need not hope that your former master will come to rescue you." Llewellyn's tone was full of confidence and certainty. He sneered and said, "Because I have set up a barrier, only those who have received permission can enter the room." Outside, Marquis Namuel was trying to use magic but had no progress. The bright magical force was blocked. Carmet, Namuel, and Galenose were outside the door trying to break the barrier. Namuel said helplessly, "I'm sorry, I can't destroy this. The barrier is so strong, at this level it is likely from an elder of the magic tower." Galenose, beside him, drew his sword and proposed, "I will try to open it." He used his strength to unleash a strong, beautiful sword strike, but the door remained unscathed. The sound of the sword hitting the barrier made a sharp noise. Galenose gritted his teeth and, after the attempt, realized that even using force would not open it. He hesitantly stepped back and said, "What should we do now?" Seeing the situation, Carmet became anxious, gritting his teeth and worriedly calling out Raynell's name. Carmet tried to think of every possible way. "What can I do now?" Carmet suddenly became contemplative as if thinking of something. In the corridor, the shadows of several maids cast on the ground. They walked while whispering. "The atmosphere today is terrifying. What's going on?" One person said. "It seems to be because of the prince." Another maid interrupted, gesturing. "Be silent." She reminded the other maids. "Have you forgotten? The oath of the servants?" During the fight for the throne, they recalled the servants who were blindfolded and gagged. There is only one crown, and it has begun. Now is the time for noble wolves. Bang! A loud noise. Carmet seemed to have hurriedly run up, bending over and breathing heavily. The maids locked up saw this and became agitated. Nadia, terrified, wondered, "Did the prince come down to the dungeon?" Carmet spoke. "I know that among you there is someone who can enter Llewellyn's room." Nadia nervously bowed her head, biting her lip in fear. "Have I been exposed?" Nadia seemed to understand the reason Carmet came down here. "Did he come down here to punish us?" The prince coldly continued. "I know there are those who collaborated with him for profit, and some were threatened by him." Nadia panicked, collapsing to the ground, her whole body trembling. "If that's the case, then I really have to die now." But unlike what Nadia thought, Carmet said, "I understand the suffering of the weak like you." Nadia, hearing this, was surprised, looking up. Outside the bars, Carmet spoke sincerely. "I understand the weak cannot easily oppose the strong, so you did not help until now, still not awakened like me." Nadia couldn't believe it and wondered. "What?" Carmet continued. "But you must surely know this, Llewellyn is someone who can easily discard even his most loyal right-hand men." Each word from Carmet struck deeply into Nadia's mind. "If in this battle for succession, Llewellyn wins, your future is not guaranteed." Nadia felt that Carmet's words made sense. "That's right, even if I stay silent or endure, Prince Llewellyn may not spare his own brother." Carmet sincerely expressed. "However, no matter what happens in the end, I will not abandon my people, I swear with everything I have." Carmet continued. "So, please help me. Llewellyn has kidnapped someone very important to me." Nadia was somewhat stunned. "An important person? Could it be?" Recalling, Carmet and the crow used to laugh and talk closely together. Suddenly, Nadia understood that this was the person the prince wanted to save. Karmat's voice was earnest and sincere. Looking at Karmat, Nadia suddenly had a thought and decided to trust him. Remembering when she was given a flower by Raynel, Nadia bit her lip, gathering all her courage. Her face was hidden in the shadows, making her expression unclear. Nadia lifted her head as if she had made up her mind. At Llewellyn's place, he was arrogantly mocking, "Look, you can't even see the face of that weakling." Llewellyn rested his chin on his hand, looking at the bird in the cage, laughing, "So now you should give up and turn into a human. Aren't you in pain enduring that ragged body?" Raynel lowered his head, thinking, "Surely that guy doesn't have the intention to kill me. Following his words might be the best way to protect this body." However, as soon as that thought appeared, Raynel immediately dismissed it. "If he thinks I'm just a toy then." Raynel suddenly felt a surge of determination. He thought to himself, "I want to see if he wins or I win." Just imagining Llewellyn shouting, "Why aren't you turning into a human quickly? What are you doing?" Raynel questioned himself if he wanted Llewellyn to become the emperor, but immediately both his crow and human instincts agreed to reject that idiot. Raynel glared at Llewellyn, thinking, "If I wasn't injured, I would peck that damn face." Seeing Raynel's hostile gaze, Llewellyn said, "Ha, this arrogant bird." Llewellyn stood up, grabbed the cage. Enraged, he lifted the cage high, about to throw it hard to the ground. He shouted, "Do you want to break all your limbs to wake up?" Suddenly, there was a loud bang. The door, which was tightly sealed by a barrier, swung open. A familiar voice rang out, "Sorry for being late. This time, you've gone too far." Llewellyn was shocked, his eyes wide with questions. It was Karmat along with Namuel and Gaelnos, and beside them was the maid, Nadia. They had arrived. Karmat sternly said, "You damned little brother." Llewellyn couldn't believe it, his eyes wide with fear. "Huh?" Looking at Karmat, Llewellyn struggled to ask, "How could this be? The barrier of this room?" Karmat calmly replied, "Yes, because of that, it was a bit tough. However," Karmat gently said, "not everything in the world will go the way you want it to." Nadia bravely stepped forward, saying, "That's right." Nadia mustered all her courage, standing in the middle, boldly declared, "I opened this door." Nadia conveniently explained, "Because of some tasks assigned to me, I was given permission to enter this barrier, wasn't I?" Llewellyn looked at the maid before him, a bit startled, and shouted, "You!" But Llewellyn couldn't remember who this maid was. Confused, he scratched his head and hesitantly asked, "Who are you?" "I can't remember unimportant things." The surroundings fell silent, everyone stood still. Nadia was heavily shocked, her face blank, her eyes vacant. "I can't believe it. Am I being manipulated by someone like this?" Gaelnos, seeing Nadia like a lost soul, shook his head, patted her shoulder to comfort her. "That's right, you should have worked for a more decent master like I do." Karmat couldn't tolerate Llewellyn's attitude any longer. He said coldly, "You can't even remember the people you've threatened and used. If someone like you becomes emperor, the country will be in a great state." Llewellyn immediately retorted, "Don't mock me. Compared to someone as naive as you, someone like me who has awakened is much better." Remembering the cage holding the beloved crow in his hands, Llewellyn slapped the cage hard, making the small crow Raynel cry out. He smugly said, "Just seeing you gather everyone here for a crow shows that you are slow and have no one to rely on. You have to depend on those inferior to you because you can't do anything on your own." Karmat, seeing his foolish brother's violent actions, gritted his teeth and said, "Raynel is worth it." As Karmat advanced towards Llewellyn, he continued strongly, "And a master is just an ordinary person, so he can't do everything alone and needs subordinates." Karmat shot a sharp look at Llewellyn, coldly questioning, "Inferior? Aren't you also borrowing others' strength?" Llewellyn was taken aback, his eyes wide. Karmat launched into a series of pointed examples. "The barrier of this room couldn't be done by someone as inexperienced as you. Setting up hidden cameras in my bedroom and study, kidnapping Raynel, did you do any of these things by yourself?" Karmat maintained his superior stance, coldly looking down at Llewellyn and concluding loudly, "Without others' help, wouldn't the one who can't do anything be you?" Llewellyn was frightened by Karmat's attitude but stubbornly retorted, "Humph. Who do you think you are?" Karmat, unfazed, continued his lecture, "Even so, you're only engrossed in your awakening and ignore everything around you." A flashback suddenly appeared. Young Llewellyn excitedly approached his mother's bed, proudly announcing, "Mom, I have awakened. I awakened before my brother." His sickly mother lay on the bed, coughing but gently responding, "That's great, Llewellyn. You must be tired. You're amazing." Young Llewellyn was overjoyed, proudly saying, "Right? I'm better than Karmat, aren't I?" His mother gently stroked his face and softly said, "Yes, yes." Llewellyn, being praised, beamed with happiness, but his mother didn't forget to advise, "Even so, you must maintain a good relationship with your brother." Her last words were like thunder in Llewellyn's ears. He was shocked, his smile fading. Young Llewellyn thought, "If I do that, no one will join hands with me." Llewellyn angrily shouted, "No. Why should I be close to someone so weak?" Darkness and malicious thoughts invaded the young boy's mind. Llewellyn coldly questioned his sick mother, "Among us, I'm the only one who has awakened. I'm the most special. Everyone else is trash." Llewellyn seemed to lose himself in that dark and evil mindset, saying, "So just look at me, only look at me." His helpless mother, lying on the bed, looked painfully at her young son, corrupted to blindness. Her final words were, "You will be alone forever." Returning to the present, Llewellyn remembered those words, firmly refusing to accept them, losing control, and shouting, "Shut up." Llewellyn, enraged and irrational, continued yelling, "Don't look down on me. How dare you?" Llewellyn, infuriated to madness, grabbed Raynal in the cage, angrily choking Raynal and growling, "Fine, let's see who's more stubborn." Llewellyn, deranged, his eyes full of malice, menacingly said, "Is this crow that valuable to you? If so, I'll tear it apart in front of you. Then we'll see if you still dare to look down on me." With that, Llewellyn viciously aimed at the small Raynal. Carmot, seeing this, immediately knew what Llewellyn intended. His worried gaze thinking rapidly, the plan was for him to distract and create an opening for Namuel and Galenose to subdue Llewellyn. They were ready to attack. All of this was to hide the fact that he had awakened until the last moment. However, Carmot's heart screamed, "How can I endure this?" Carmot let out a loud roar, golden light flashed, and Carmot transformed into a wolf, confronting the awakened Llewellyn directly. Galenose, concerned, exclaimed, "Your Highness!" The other two were equally worried and astonished. The wolf Carmot lunged to attack Llewellyn, who was restraining Raynal. The sounds of their struggle echoed. The small crow, Raynal, lay motionless on the spot. Carmot howled and charged at Llewellyn in a frenzy. Deep down, Carmot knew his actions were foolish and risky, but he couldn't stand idly by while Llewellyn had his way. Wolves, after all, are creatures that would bite an enemy's throat if their loved ones were threatened. On the other side, Nadia hurriedly checked Raynal's condition. The confrontation between Carmot and Llewellyn clearly showed Carmot gaining the upper hand. Carmot subdued Llewellyn beneath him, leaving Llewellyn injured and incredulous. Impossible, Llewellyn thought, how could Carmot have awakened to such a monstrous size? Realizing the unfavorable situation, Llewellyn was paralyzed with fear. Raynal weakly cawed, and Carmot, on the verge of biting Llewellyn's neck, halted at Nadia's frantic voice. "Prince Carmot," Nadia called out, holding the small crow Raynal in her arms, tears streaming down her face. "Raynal is severely injured and needs immediate treatment," she said, trembling. Carmot, hearing Nadia's report, looked over and calmed down. He delivered a final blow to Llewellyn, who cried out in pain. Carmot then returned to his human form and rushed to Raynal, gently asking, "Raynal, can I take you for treatment?" Raynal, with great effort, nodded and then quickly collapsed. Carmot carefully supported her, gritting his teeth, eyes filled with worry and sorrow. He gently cradled Raynal, who was trembling in his arms, and whispered, "Thank you, Raynal, for allowing me." Later, back in his room, with a gentle breeze wafting through, Raynal was tucked into bed, still asleep. A voice broke the silence, "The treatment is complete, Your Highness." Carmot, looking at the doctor who was doing the final checks on Raynal, anxiously asked, "Will she not wake up?" The doctor responded, "Considering the extent of her injuries, she might be suffering from psychological trauma. Recovery could be facilitated through divine intervention, but her mental state is delicate and it's best to let her heal gradually." Carmot stood silently, clenching his fists, seemingly blaming himself. "What should we do now?" someone asked. Carmot responded with determination, "I promise to protect Raynal. I must uphold that responsibility." He continued, "Although I don't want to resort to this." Namuel was taken aback and asked, "Do you mean?" Carmot nodded affirmatively. "Yes, it's exactly what you're thinking," he said, resolute. "Let's declare Bocus." Bocus was an ancient tradition of the royal family, a sacred duel organized by the emperor, fought until one heir in wolf form emerged victorious. Serious injuries were common, and a slight misstep could be fatal. The winner would become the next emperor. In eras where more than two awakened heirs existed, this battle was the ultimate solution. The sound of heavy footsteps symbolized confidence in one's power and victory. Whispers spread among the crowd. "The two princes clashed last night? So the battle for the throne has officially begun? They say the first prince awakened suddenly. How did that happen? I can't believe it until I see it with my own eyes. Loud footsteps were heard, a large wolf with pure white fur and golden mane majestically stepped forward, drawing all eyes. Declaring Bocas was simple, transform into a wolf and prove oneself as the rightful heir. A powerful roar signified the strength and fighting spirit of an emperor. The roar shattered nearby glass, causing panic among the guests and servants. People screamed, "What's happening? Can we stand this pressure?" In that atmosphere, a large wolf with platinum fur appeared, slowly approaching the roaring beast. The wolf transformed into Karmat's father, the emperor, who said gently, "You've finally declared Bocas. Until the duel ends, you won't receive any help and can only use your own strength. The loser doesn't matter, do you?" The emperor's understanding was clear. But now, the third prince is severely injured. He needs to rest and recover. Bocas will be held when both are in their best condition. The emperor then cast a spell and declared, "From this moment until the decisive battle of Bocas, any trickery or interference is strictly forbidden. Any noble defying this order will pay with their life." Hearing the emperor's declaration, Galenus worried, knowing neither he nor Marquis Namuel could assist Karmat. Meanwhile, Nadia was carefully cleaning Reynal. Each gentle motion showed her care and dedication. Karmat praised her, "You seem adept at caring for the sick." Nadia replied, "Yes, my brother was often ill. But thanks to the person you sent, my brother is much healthier now. So, I will repay your kindness by diligently caring for Reynal." Reynal, lying in the space between consciousness, heard this and felt grateful. She envisioned herself floating in a dreamlike realm, realizing she must have been unconscious for a while, making Karmat worry. She called out, frustrated, "Hey, Crow. What's your instinct? Let me out now." The crow responded calmly, "Not yet." Reynal, still agitated, argued, "Not yet? If it wasn't for your stubbornness, we wouldn't have been kidnapped." The crow, scratching its head, admitted, "Yes, that was a bit of my fault." Reynal sighed, "Because of you, we suffered so much." The crow flapped its wings and said, "But going out now would scare Karmat." Reynal, understanding, replied, "I need to face and overcome it, not run away." Reynal embraced Karmat, calling his name as she returned to her human form. Karmat, surprised, caught her. "Reynal," he said, relieved. Reynal apologized and thanked him for rescuing her. Seeing her back to normal, Karmat smiled and said, "I'm grateful you're safe." He held her gently, comforting her like a child. Nadia, watching, was stunned, her mouth agape. Nadia, startled by her own clumsiness, apologized profusely. "I'm sorry. Cleaning is my job, and I messed it up," she cried. Karmat reassured her, "It's okay, I was just surprised." Reynal also laughed, "It's not a big deal." Nadia, feeling guilty, said, "If I had opposed Prince Llewellyn earlier, you wouldn't have faced difficulties." Reynal comforted her, "You were brave to open the barrier for me." Reynal smiled warmly at Nadia, "It takes courage to do what you did. If it were an animal, it would be like a rabbit entering a wolf's den." Nadia, realizing Reynal's compliment, felt reassured. "Without you, I wouldn't be here to hold your hand," Reynal said, holding Nadia's hands, who felt a sense of relief. Nadia pledged her loyalty, "I'll repay your kindness, no matter what." Reynal smiled, "Thank you." Nadia felt admiration growing in her heart. Karmat then suggested, "Would you like Nadia to serve you?" Reynal, excited, asked, "Really? Can she?" Karmat nodded, "Yes, since your true identity is known, let her serve you. It will also prevent Llewellyn from exploiting others." Reynal, overjoyed, embraced Nadia, "Thank you." Nadia shyly introduced herself, "My name is Nadia." Reynal responded, "And I'm Reynal. I look forward to your help." Nadia, moved, pledged her loyalty again, "I will never forget your kindness." Reynal smiled and said, "Thank you for your courage." As Reynal lay exhausted on the sofa, she sighed, "Comforting her made me sweat." Karmat replied, "She's loyal, so you can trust her." Reynal laughed, "I didn't expect her to refuse to go home." Recalling Nadia's tears, Reynal commented, "She's the first to refuse to end her shift." Karmat laughed, "Seems everyone is honest with you." Reynal smiled, "They see me as a harmless bird." Karmat suggested, "We should cut the steward's salary." Reynal reacted in surprise, "What?" Karmat laughed, "Just kidding." But he added seriously, "I'll remind everyone to be cautious with their words." With Bocas declared, they would be safe from hidden struggles, but Reynal wondered about the dangers. Karmat explained Bocas, and Reynal, horrified, asked, "Why put yourself in danger because of me?" Karmat looked at Reynal's appearance and spoke first. "First, calm down, Reynal. It's not your fault, so you don't need to blame yourself. This was bound to happen sooner or later, it's just that it happened a bit sooner this time." Carmot sat down next to Reynal, which startled her. He continued, "It's because of Llewellyn's mischief. So, there's no need for you to worry." As Carmot placed a hand on Reynal's shoulder, she immediately pulled back. This action left Carmot puzzled, not understanding why she acted like that. He gently reached out with his other hand to touch Reynal, but she retreated even further. Carmot couldn't think of any reason for her strange behavior. He returned to his original spot and said, "Reynal, at least for now, compared to my own struggles, I'm more worried about you." Carmot's words made Reynal feel a sharp pain in her heart. "What are you talking about? I'm perfectly fine." She suddenly thought that this might be her instinct. She recalled the crow's words, "Animals instinctively avoid creatures that harm them." She realized she had unconsciously avoided Carmot. How should she deal with this? While thinking, she suddenly felt something soft brush her face. Reynal turned and saw that it was a wolf, transformed by Carmot. Reynal gently rubbed and petted the wolf, then Carmot changed back to his human form. "Thank goodness the wolf form seems to be okay," Carmot said, startling Reynal. He recounted, "When you fainted, the doctor said there might be psychological aftereffects. Luckily, the search party was delayed because Llewellyn claimed he was injured, so we have some free time." Llewellyn yelled, declaring that I must rest and recover. Carmot suggested, "During this time, I'll help you recover, so you don't need to worry by yourself." He transformed into a wolf and gently kissed Reynal on the cheek. Seeing this, Reynal became emotional and said, "Actually, I'm really scared, really scared." Carmot laid her head on his soft fur. Meanwhile, Quintus was in the training ground, wielding his sword with fierce determination, thinking deeply. He remembered how Marquis Namuel had learned the truth about Carmot's transformation into a wolf. When Quintus asked, Namuel had calmly replied, "I had already guessed, because I was the one who brought the prince to the ridge." The more he thought about it, the angrier Quintus became. He clenched his teeth and struck with such force that his opponent was knocked down. He didn't care and shouted for the next opponent. He continued to think about why the prince hadn't told him the truth. Those around whispered, "Quintus's swordsmanship is particularly fierce today," and sighed, "Anyway, he's as strong as a beast." Quintus pondered, knowing that after the incident, the prince had lost trust in others. But he believed the prince trusted him after his vow of loyalty. Yet, even now, the prince didn't seem to fully trust him. At that moment, Galenose stood outside Carmot's room, hesitating. Should he enter? He swallowed nervously and reassured himself, "It's okay. It might just be a misunderstanding." With that, he decided to knock on the door. "Your Highness, it's Garlinos. May I come in?" Hearing no response, he opened the door and walked in. Inside, he saw a peaceful scene, a golden wolf, Carmot, sleeping soundly at the desk. Beside him, on his soft fur, was a small black crow, also asleep. Seeing this, Galenose felt a mix of emotions, especially at the sight of the crow. A rustling sound indicated that Carmot had woken up and noticed Garlinos's presence. "You're here?" Carmot transformed back into his human form, standing before Garlinos with a strong presence. Noticing Garlinos's displeasure, Carmot didn't hide his understanding and commented, "Your eyes show your dissatisfaction." Garlinos knew the prince understood his feelings but didn't explain and chose to mock him instead. This made Garlinos even more frustrated, recalling when he talked to his teacher in the palace. His teacher praised Carmot's exceptional talent and suggested he should serve the third prince instead of the crown prince. But Carmot had refused, confidently asserting his unchanging determination. Surrounding nobles gossiped about his stubbornness, calling him odd. They wondered why he was so insistent, considering it a waste of talent. When Carmot heard about the prince's attack, he was furious, punching a wall in anger and questioning the knights about the lack of support for the prince. His anger grew as he didn't believe Llewellyn's words about forming a search party. He suspected that instead of searching, they wanted to ensure the prince's death. His words silenced the other knights, who reluctantly agreed with him but advised him to accept the crown prince's death and move on. But Carmot refused to believe it, determined to find the prince. Back in the present, in Carmot's room, Garlinos questioned the prince, suspecting that Carmot had awakened to save the crow. He expressed his disappointment, feeling betrayed by the prince's secrecy. Carmot, with a regretful face, apologized, acknowledging Garlinos's loyalty and the importance of his presence. The prince explained that he had almost been killed due to his cautious actions, and his enemies had learned about his awakening. After hearing this, Garlinos's doubts and frustrations eased, replaced by understanding. Carmot revealed that the crow, Reynal, could transform into a human and had saved him. He asked Garlinos to protect Reynal, expressing his trust in him. This task surprised Garlinos, as the prince had never entrusted anyone with such an important responsibility. Garlinos felt grateful and determined to fulfill this duty, recognizing his essential role in the prince's life. He imagined himself valiantly protecting the prince and Reynal, feeling a mix of excitement and realization. He understood that the prince truly trusted him, making his resolve even stronger. Garlinos placed his hand lightly on his chest and felt the uneasy emotions dissipate like melting snow. At that moment, Garlinos realized his role with Prince Karmat. He now saw himself as a reliable knight accompanying the prince in the days to come. In his mind, Venus imagined a scene where he worked alongside Prince Karmat, while Reynal lay in the prince's arms. He would valiantly wield a long sword to protect the two from external attacks. Just thinking about it made him feel excited. Suddenly, he paused as if he realized something was not quite right. Wait, that means... A bold thought struck Karmat like a huge shock. The two of them were married. Then the image of Prince Karmat dancing with a girl named Reynal in a wedding dress appeared, and then the scene where Prince Karmat was next to her, holding a baby in his arms. He even asked tenderly, "My dear, are you tired?" Next, the scene showed two children calling Knight Galnos, and both children looked exactly like Prince Karmat. There was even one child being a downer, and this man couldn't help but imagine himself laughing out loud when the two children called, "Knight Galnos, teach us swordsmanship." He gently responded, "Oh, I will teach both the prince and the princess, okay," looking very pleased. He snapped out of his imagination, slammed his hand on the table, and shouted, "Prince Karmat, your highness, Winster will risk his life to fulfill your orders." His determination was burning so fiercely that it seemed to ignite the air around him. Karmat couldn't understand why he was reacting so intensely. "It's good that you have regained your spirit, but don't overdo it. I don't want to hear you again," he said. However, the man ignored the prince's words and continued to brandish his sword wildly, shouting, "Your highness, please assign me the task. Even if my limbs are crushed, my determination will remain unshaken." With determination burning inside, Garlinos went to the library, where he believed he could find the information he needed. This is what a loyal subject should do, he thought to himself as he put down a book that Galnos had found, sighing, "But no matter how hard I search, I can't find any information about Bacchus." He began to complain to Namuel, looking exhausted, "I can't find any secret documents. If I can't find a way to help the prince, then that's a problem about the royal inheritance. But how can I not find a single line about it?" While Galnos was lamenting, Namuel found something. "Here, there's a passage," he said. Galnos immediately perked up and asked, "Where? Where is it?" Namuel replied, "Here, in this book, The Flow of Imperial History and Law. He continued reading, "Bacchus is the sacred duel to determine the royal inheritance." Galnos was listening intently but then realized that Namuel had been silent for a while. After a moment of silence, Galnos asked, "Is that all?" Namuel smiled and replied, "Yes, that's all." Realizing that the book had tricked him, Galnos angrily drew his sword with the intent to cut the book. Namuel immediately shielded it with his body, pleading, "No, you can't cut it. It's not an enemy." Galnos, speaking like a villain, said, "I'll just cut it a little. I have to take revenge because it mocked us." Namuel continued to plead, "I said no." Galnos sat back down, sighing, "Anyway, I don't understand why such an important ritual is forbidden. There must be a record of it somewhere." A gust of wind blew through, and a voice said, "All records about Bacchus have been banned. Even if you search your whole life, you won't find anything, not even theoretical content." The sound of footsteps drew the attention of Garlinos and Namuel, and they saw Marquis Wilhelm approaching. Galnos was angered by the information from the Marquis. "What are your intentions, Marquis? Are you trying to obstruct our investigation?" He replied defiantly, "We don't need your help. Even if you try to stop us, we won't stop." The Marquis laughed, "I'm here to help you." Galnos didn't change his mind and continued, "I don't talk to people who change monarchs at their whim." The Marquis, unfazed by the reproach, pulled a chair and sat opposite Galnos. "Ha ha, that's a very Galnos-like response. Such sincerity is precious. But now, listen to what I have to say and judge. It'll be better, even if just a little." Without waiting for Karmat to speak, Marquis Wilhelm asked, "Do you know that the current king won the Bacchus duel?" The Marquis continued, "The current king is the one who won the Bacchus duel." He was talking about the current king, none other than Karmat's father, who looked exactly like the prince in his youth, with platinum white hair, a sharp face, and cold, sharp eyes that radiated the authority of a king. The Marquis meticulously recounted witnessing the king's Bacchus duel in his youth, describing it as a terrifying memory. "It's as if the memories are still fresh," he said, explaining why the records of Bacchus were banned. "Perhaps it's to avoid turning such a tragedy into a spectacle." At the moment the king bit down fatally on his opponent's neck in wolf form, it was horrifyingly cruel. Despite the terrifying tale, Galenose, unfazed, asked, "What do you mean by telling us this story?" He didn't understand the danger of the duel, thinking simply, and judged the Marquis's words as untrustworthy. "Are you trying to scare us?" Marquis Wilhelm, unable to persuade him, waved his hand. "Who knows? If you were afraid, I wouldn't have come here." Realizing he wasn't there to warn them about the duel's danger, he said, "I just hope Prince Karmit will finish the Bacchus duel smoothly." Using noble words, he praised Galenose, "You will bring glory to the empire. I hope the prince will shed as little blood as possible and win to become king." The Marquis advised Galenose to be wary of Llewellyn's potential use of forbidden methods to win, suggesting that they needed a plan to counter that. This time, Galenose didn't refute, acknowledging the truth in the Marquis's words. Marquis Wilhelm stood up, stating the biggest obstacle, however, covert maneuvers or foul play are forbidden, so I can't interfere directly. He gave Galenose and Namuel detailed advice: when searching for documents, don't look for royal records. Try looking at the records of subordinates. Turning away, he left them with final words: "Your actions will be a guide for you. Good luck, young ones." As he left, Garlinos and Namuel, who had been listening intently, seemed to have taken the Marquis's advice to heart. Galenose looked at Namuel, and both exchanged glances and nodded, understanding what they needed to do. "Let's start searching," they said, immediately beginning to search for the suggested records in the vast library. Galenose confidently clenched his fist, loudly declaring, "Prince Karmit, please duel with me, Your Highness. In duels, training is crucial. I will assist you." At that moment, Karmit, who had just woken up with messy hair, carrying the crow Reynal on his shoulder, sighed and advised, "Duke Galenose, it's still early morning. The sun hasn't even risen yet." He realized that speaking to Garlinos was more important. "Aren't you supposed to be helping me?" Confidently, Galenose responded, "Ho ho, everything has a way, Your Highness." He shared, according to the records, the current king's knight sparred with His Majesty without missing a day until His Majesty was bedridden. He continued, "That means you can spar even during the Bacchus duel period. Galenose has made great efforts to think of ways for the prince to become stronger. This has precedent, so there won't be any problem." Garlinos informed Karmit, "The Marquis is also monitoring other mages to see if they're engaging in illicit activities. He's at the magic tower questioning the senior mage who helped Llewellyn." Knowing that Garlinos and Namuel had been working hard for him, the prince felt grateful. "You have worked hard for me." Concerned for their safety, he worried, "Even with precedent, isn't it dangerous? I'm afraid you'll get into trouble." Then, Reynal's voice chimed in, "Still, you should practice sparring." Her jet black hair glistened as she floated in the air. She had been sleeping and was woken by their conversation. Now in human form, she advised the prince, "You don't know what tricks Llewellyn might use, so it's better to practice as Karmit suggested." Seeing her agreement, Galenose laughed, "Your Highness, did you hear? Reynal agrees too." The prince acknowledged the necessity, but with caution, "But, I think you should be more careful." Reynal earnestly continued to persuade the prince, "Even the mightiest beasts can fall in a moment. I've seen many fierce beasts killed by weaker ones or perish from minor wounds." Gripping his hand, she emphasized, "The natural world is cruel. To survive, even cowardly tricks must be used. So, please, I hope you will survive no matter what." Her voice trembled, and she clung to him, pleading, "Please don't die, Your Highness." Touched by her concern, the prince accepted her plea. "Duke Galenose," the prince called out. "Yes, Your Highness," Galenose responded. "Prepare for a sparring match," the prince ordered. In the training ground filled with various activities such as archery, sword fighting, and more, Galenose raised his sword confidently. "Are you ready?" The prince, grasping the sword with determination, replied, "Yes, I'm ready." He took a stance, preparing to spar with Karmit. "Let's start." Galenose's unyielding stance, as if the sparring match was a matter of life and death, impressed the prince. With a firm grip on his sword, Galenose shouted, "Let's begin." Then he charged at the prince with astonishing speed. The sparring session had started. Garlinos commented while observing Prince Karmit, "Your Highness, I can sense unease in your sword movements." He continued speaking while fighting, "Prince Karmit, if you can't control your emotions, your stance won't be accurate." Prince Karmit didn't respond. Garlinos went on, "Though I don't know your state of mind right now, when you wield a sword, you must forget everything and focus on the enemy in front of you." After hearing Garlinos' remarks, Karmit replied, "I know, but it's not easy. I won't die alone, I won't just die alone, and that's why I feel anxious." Reynal, in her crow form, perched on a branch from a distance, watching the two of them train. She was so surprised that she gaped, amazed by Karmat. Oh, Karmat, I always thought he was just a funny character. Seeing him like this, he truly is one of the formidable characters. I hope there's some way to help Karmat. Watching them train seriously together, Reynal had a realization, wait, I'm not human, nor am I a noble. So whether I ambush or do something else, it wouldn't be against the rules in the Bacchus duel. She suddenly figured out what she could do to help them. As a crow, I can watch over and see what tricks that scoundrel Llewellyn is planning. After thinking for a while, Reynal shook her head. No, if I act recklessly now, I might face worse consequences than being kidnapped. If only there were some way. As she was pondering, she heard some sparrows arguing nearby. Hey, I found that fruit first. Put it down, you dimwit. They were bickering over some raspberries on a branch. Where did you come from? I picked it up first, you scaly, featherless one. They argued fiercely. Their quarrel inadvertently gave Reynal an idea. She decided to fly over to the sparrows, calling out, hey, stop fighting and listen to me. The sparrows, with angry faces, turned to her and asked, who are you? Get lost. Their aggression made Reynal sweat nervously. These guys are tough. How can I convince them? Meanwhile, in Llewellyn's room, he was screaming in frustration, damn it. Damn it. No matter how I think, there's no way to win. He looked utterly defeated after facing Garlinos, trembling with the memory of Karmat's power. With that strength and form, I knew I would lose in an instant. Now, he was terrified of Karmat's incredible strength. Llewellyn angrily punched around, cursing, you coward, how dare you hide the fact that you had awakened. The mage beside him, confident and reassuring, said, don't worry, future king. Llewellyn glared at him, are you mocking me, calling me the future king now? Still angry from the mage's earlier comment, he yelled, how can you still say that in this situation? The mage, initially appearing as an old man with a white beard, suddenly transformed into a young man with golden hair, saying calmly, we still have time. I have a plan. Using his dark magic, he controlled Llewellyn. He seemed to be enchanted. The crown prince will pay for daring to oppose the future king. Now, Nadia asked again, cookies? Reynal shyly scratched her head and said, yes, the kind that small birds can eat. Can you help me? Nadia laughed and replied, of course, if you ask, I can help. Nadia innocently asked, but if they are small birds, won't your friends eat them? Reynal froze, unsure how to answer, hesitantly saying, well, they might be friends. I am not sure all of you know, Reynal can transform into birds and listen to the conversations between the birds in the trees. The black crow, trembling, perched on a branch and said, so, about the thing I asked? The two little white birds perched on the opposite branch responded, humph, why should we listen to a brat like you? The two white birds suddenly realized, wait, this one is different from us, but it can speak. That's strange. Another bird replied, normally, even if we're all birds, different species can't talk to each other, can they? The white bird turned to the black crow and asked, hey, little one, did you eat the sparkling fruit? The black crow nervously asked, how do you know about that? The white bird flapped its wings and shook its head, saying, as I thought. The white bird, looking knowledgeable, lectured, kiddo, we've been living here longer and have seen more things than you. The black crow was surprised, could it be that there is another crow in this palace that has eaten the Coven rock? The white bird explained, how? Though he doesn't live here, he sometimes comes here with his human friend. The black crow, a bit scared, thought, how can that be? The black crow worriedly thought, if I meet that crow, I could gain something, learn this or that, right? And a special class just for you? You could suddenly become a 100% reputable black crow as a senior and junior, and the Coven rock will emerge just in time for me to discover hidden talents, right? Though it still hasn't shed Munchkin's foolishness, it will be the greatest counterattack of the death birds of all time. The black crow, pleased, flapped its wings, saying, can't I meet that crow? The two white birds, showing little concern, turned away and replied, no way. The white bird explained, though we don't know where he lives, he doesn't like others talking about him. If you want to meet him, it's better to find out about him yourself. The black crow, disappointed, thought, indeed, nothing is easy. After the battle, I'll have to slowly look for him. The two white birds crossed their wings and tilted their heads, asking, more importantly, didn't you say you had something to tell us? The black crow, startled, oh my, the black crow began the story, it's like this, there's a bastard named Llewellyn. The sound of wings flapping was heard from the tree. A sword flew up into the air with a sharp, ear-piercing clang. Gaelnos, supporting Karmat, reminded him, you were distracted, your highness. Karmat replied, sorry. Karmit glanced up at the tree and explained, actually, I've been paying attention to Reynal talking to other birds in the tree. The sounds of chirping and cawing were clear. Reynal firmly said, I know what you're thinking, but please focus on the training. Karmit interrupted, no, listen to me. This is the first time I've seen Reynal talk to other birds for so long. This feeling. Karmit started imagining other crows flirting with Reynal. They'll invite Reynal, Miss, would you like to have a cup of tea with us? Reynal would shyly blush and reply, oh, I don't know. Karmit, not easily swayed, crossed his arms and sighed, reminding himself, nevertheless, the training is more important for your highness right now. If you're that concerned about your feelings, I will take down your rival immediately. Imagining Karmit angrily brandishing his sword, the fiery rage blazing, Karmit stopped him in fear, no need to go that far. They're just small birds, I don't think they're rivals. Galinos's serious face and aura of killing intent made him sternly say, Your Highness, you cannot show mercy to your rivals. Even if they're just sparrows, give me the order. Karmit helplessly replied, Why are you more anxious than I am? I'll focus on the training, so calm down. The black crow on the tree felt a bad premonition and started sweating nervously. If I don't finish talking quickly, something big will happen. In the palace, in Karmit's bedroom, he stood with his arms crossed, watching Reynal lying on the bed. He said, So you asked other birds to watch Llewellyn? Reynal lazily replied, Yes, because if I did it myself, it could be dangerous. Remembering the terrifying scene earlier, Reynal added, Instead, I gave cookies to them. That's why Nadia worked hard, so you must pay her well. Karmit answered, Of course, but... Karmit's face showed a trace of sadness, and he hesitantly clenched his fists, saying, I'm sorry. Reynal didn't understand, why are you suddenly apologizing? Before that, the black crow on the tree, restless, tried to persuade the two white birds, Will you help me watch Llewellyn? The white birds considered it and asked, So you want us to help you watch Llewellyn? The black crow eagerly replied, Yes, that's right. The black crow nervously asked, Is that okay? The white birds pondered and said, There's nothing we can't do. We don't like him anyway. The white bird angrily said, Every time we meet, he throws stones at us, even hit me on the head once. That's why we remember him so clearly. Reynal thought, They really are like children. The white bird continued, However, we can't do it for free. You must repay us. The black crow shivered and said, Yes, yes. Karmit thought, Since Reynal faced difficulties because of Llewellyn, I constantly think about it. He hesitated, saying, I've made you uneasy. If not for me, you wouldn't have to worry and could fly freely in the sky. Karmit confessed, My existence seems to cause you pain. There's always a deep-seated anxiety in my heart, a constant threat to my life, and even if I awaken, I can't fully trust myself. I'm always helpless and scared. Karmit trembled, tears rolling down his cheeks. Even if I don't believe it, all my struggles only cause pain to those I care about. He thought, What should I do? If it weren't for me, you would be happier. Reynal held his hand and shouted, No, it's not like that, Karmit. You're not untrustworthy. I just want to help you. Reynal looked at Karmit and reassured him, If someone I care about has to fight and risk their life, how can I sit still? Karmit was moved by her words, his eyes filled with tears. Reynal held both of Karmit's hands, and they looked at each other. She continued, So, never say that again. Staying here with you makes me happy. Understand? Karmit, filled with happiness, nodded and replied, I understand, Reynal. I will remember that. He recalled when he was young, a black crow came to him and kept him company. Karmit felt happy thinking about how she always saved his soul. In Karmit research room, he stood before a pile of scattered documents, thinking helplessly, wrong again. If this keeps up, there will be no results at all. Among the wizards he knew, none wanted to influence politics. Even meeting the veteran wizards nearby was difficult, let alone face-to-face encounters. By deduction, the one helping the third prince must be a high-level wizard. There were too few clues to identify him. Even a small piece of evidence would be good. On a warm sunny morning, with birds chirping on the treetops, two little birds were pecking at cookies on a plate, making delightful clucking sounds. The black crow stood nearby, waiting for them to finish eating before quacking, quack, quack. The two birds eating enthusiastically looked up and chirped, chirp, chirp. At this moment, Nadia was peeking, observing every move of the birds by the window. Galenos nodded, pleased. Oh, using birds as spies is indeed a brilliant idea. Nadia, folding her arms, pretended to clear her throat, Our Reynal sure knows her stuff. Galenos responded, Indeed, she has an amazing master. With a terrifying expression, Galinos declared, I must immediately teach you how to risk your life and be loyal to your master. Nadia, misunderstanding, responded with determination, please, teach me. I will risk my life to learn from you. Karmat saw that and quickly intervened, wait, Galenose, don't implant strange ideas into others. One person like you is enough. Despite Galenos's embarrassment, with cheeks blushing like a shy girl, he thought, is the prince acknowledging me as unique? Nadia didn't seem to care and ran enthusiastically towards Reynal. Ah, it looks like Reynal is done talking. Karmat, startled, hurriedly ran after her, almost tripping. With the sound of birds flapping their wings continuously, Karmat approached the window, eagerly asking, Reynal, how did it go? Reynal gracefully transformed into a human form and replied, I have gathered some very accurate information that will surely be useful to you. Confidently, Reynal stroked her black rainbow-colored hair and said, ha ha, as expected, my guess was spot on. The birds told me everything. Garlinos and Nadia listened intently, nervous, what information? Reynal innocently replied, quack, 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 they said that. All three, Karmat, Garlinos, and Nadia, felt bewildered, looking at Reynal in confusion. Karmat gently asked, Reynal, could you explain a bit more clearly? The other two thought, good job, your highness. Reynal scratched her head and asked, huh? Did I miss something? All right, if I put it more specifically. Then Reynal started using bird language and body language to explain, which nobody understood. Satisfied, she smiled and said, that's it. Karmat, exasperated, raised his hand, I'm sorry, Reynal, but I still don't understand bird language. Can you speak in human language? Reynal suddenly realized, covering her mouth, oh, have I been speaking bird language all this time? I'm sorry, this is my first time talking to birds, so I made a mistake. Reynal then called urgently to the black crow, bowing before it, please help me this time. I must translate successfully. The black crow, startled, asked, what is it? I was just taking a bath. You only find me when you need something. But because I like you, I'll help. Reynal cleared her throat and said, according to the birds, Llewellyn often meets with a certain man. The birds aren't good at identifying humans, so they couldn't describe his appearance clearly. But they said his hair is very long, probably meaning he has a long beard. His voice makes them feel terrible, and it emits an unpleasant aura as if it doesn't belong to this world. Their instincts tell them it's dangerous. Karmat listened intently, pondering, I may not fully understand magic, but with this clue, it's certain that the Marquis Namuel has consulted a wizard. Karmat nodded, feeling confident, yes, with this much information, there is no doubt. In Karmat's cluttered office, books were scattered everywhere. Namuel and Karmat were discussing. Namuel was saying, indeed, an energy not belonging to this world. Does anyone have a guess what it could be? Namuel speculated, the only person who can use such power among the senior wizards is someone named Vuren Rot. According to rumors, he is studying the power of demons. And if the demon's power is on the third prince's side, we must come up with a countermeasure to avoid breaking the rules of the boss battle. We can't predict what tricks they might use in the decisive battle. Namuel analyzed and suddenly realized he hadn't asked about the information source, but how did you get that information, your highness? It couldn't have been easy. Namuel was curious, did you use your shadow? Karmat laughed, haha, not at all. I declared that I wouldn't manipulate it to do anything and must rely entirely on myself. Now I'm receiving information from someone else, a very reliable messenger. While Karmat was proudly talking about his crow friend, in another room, Reynal, in the form of a crow, was in agony, helplessly shouting, help me. Because Reynal was blocking the door, preventing a horde of birds from swarming in, chirping for cookies, with eyes glowing terrifyingly. Reynal cried desperately, there are no more cookies. What started as bribing 2 birds has now turned my room into the most famous free gourmet restaurant in the bird world. Reynal continued to scream, stop coming. Nadia, help me a bit. But unfortunately, Nadia, who couldn't understand bird language, thought Reynal was just playing with her friends and watched happily from a distance, thinking, Reynal sure has many friends. Time passed slowly, following the natural rhythm of morning, noon, afternoon, and night. In the house, there was a constant clattering sound, revealing someone eating steak. It was Reynal, sitting and enjoying dinner with Karmat. The two sat opposite each other in silence, enjoying their meal. Reynal, biting a piece of meat, continuously glanced at Karmat sitting in front of her, thinking, today, the atmosphere is very different. Though he looks the same as usual, the air feels tense. Yes, today is the day of the boss battle. Reynal felt sad, thinking that the meal in front of her could be Karmat's last dinner. Reynal's hands, cutting the steak, suddenly stopped, worrying uselessly. The boss battle is a fierce fight between wolves, but it's not just an ordinary battle between wolves. All the fierce beasts value their bodies. If they can't win before being seriously injured, they will withdraw. But this is a bloody battle between humans disguised as wolves. Even if they surrender, they will still bite and kill each other until the last breath, tearing each other apart. Reynal feared the scene of Karmit's beautiful golden fur stained with blood. I absolutely don't want to see that. Reynal gritted her teeth, closing her eyes, trembling with emotion. Karmit, seeing this, reassured her, "Don't worry too much, Reynal. I have given you information so you can prepare a countermeasure." While speaking, he bit into an apple, making a crisp sound. Reynal couldn't stop worrying. Karmit suggested, "If you're feeling anxious, how about performing a good luck ritual?" Hearing this, Reynal immediately jumped up, slammed her hands on the table, and shouted, "What is it? I'll do anything." Karmit responded, "It's not that." He stood up, looked at her gently, and said, "You just need to close your eyes for a moment." Reynal obediently closed her eyes without saying anything, thinking, "I'll do as he says." What exactly is he planning to do? Karmit reached out to stroke her cheek. He covered her mouth with his hand and gently kissed his own hand in a romantic gesture. Surprised, Reynal opened her eyes wide. Karmit whispered, "If I win, you must promise me something." Reynal blushed and, unable to maintain her composure, started muttering in a foreign language, specifically crow sounds, caw-caw, out of embarrassment. Reynal then transformed into a crow, flapping her wings in front of Karmit. Karmit laughed heartily and said, "You're still so easily embarrassed. Thanks to you, I'm not nervous anymore. This is truly exhilarating." Karmit said nothing more, watching the embarrassed and flustered crow, thinking, "Don't worry, Reynal. For your sake, I will survive this battle." The sound of the crowd filled the arena as people settled in to watch the fight. The place was noisy and bustling. The emperor stood on the podium and announced loudly, "The ritual of the Boscus begins now." In the hall, Karmit wore a worried and anxious expression. Before the battle started, people were buzzing with excitement, speculating whether this generation would witness a Boscus. Who will win? I don't know. The crown prince is huge, but still, someone who awakened long ago is more likely to win, right? True, but Prince Karmit only awakened recently, and size isn't everything. Gaelnos, standing on the sidelines of these conversations, became furious when he overheard them. His face contorted with anger, and a burning flame raged inside him. He clenched his teeth and muttered, "How dare they?" A companion beside Gaelnos reminded him, "Calm down, my lord. Getting angry at each person will only make you more upset." On the podium, Namuel and Nadia noticed Karmit's fiery expression. Namuel added, "That's right, Gaelnos. Just remember their faces and punish them later." Nadia, with a sorrowful look, said, "But I understand, my knight. If I heard such bad things about Reynal, I would be furious too." The Black Crow, observing from afar, worried with tearful eyes, called out Karmit's name, "Please, stay safe." The emperor, standing above, raised his hand and declared loudly, "Let the ritual of Boscus begin." The crowd enthusiastically cheered and shouted. Karmit calmly stepped into the arena, each step firm and proud. Llewellyn, equally proud, walked in with an air of arrogance. The emperor explained the rules of the contest as follows. First, the winner of the battle will become the emperor. Second, aside from the two princes, no one else is allowed to intervene in the battle. Anyone who violates this rule and receives help from others will immediately lose their right to compete and be punished. The manner of punishment will be decided by the winner. In the event of any suspicious activity, the elders of the magic tower will verify it, and both princes must accept the results. With that, both Karmit and Llewellyn transformed into wolves and charged at each other with full force, thrilling the audience who cheered loudly. It was heartbreaking to see two brothers, born from the same parents, fighting to the death for the throne. The story began with a happy family of a father, mother, and 4 children. They thought they would live happily ever after, like in a fairy tale. But one day, the mother suddenly fell ill, and everything started to go wrong. Despite the best efforts of all the doctors in the empire, her condition did not improve. The father, worried about the mother, neglected the children. Perhaps because of this, Llewellyn suddenly awakened, and his already selfish nature worsened. The nobles took advantage of this rift, forming their own factions. Eventually, the second prince died in an accident. Although it appeared he fell off his horse, no one in the royal capital believed it was an accident. It was natural, as one of the 4 siblings would become the next emperor, so eliminating competitors was seen as a way to prove loyalty. It's an idea that anyone could come up with, the image of Karmit collapsing in pain on the ground, because someone had appeared from behind and ambushed him. Eventually, their frail mother, shocked by the death of the second prince, begged to follow him. Since then, the palace has had a giant rift that could never return to the way it was, and in the end, here, two brothers with the same blood, the same parents, became twisted siblings who would tear and kill each other. Sounds a bit bitter, doesn't it? The tense battle is still ongoing, Nadia crying, her body trembling, said, I can't watch anymore. If I had known it would last this long, I would have taken tranquilizers beforehand. Namul, sitting next to her, replied sadly, indeed, it's an official duel, so it won't end easily, huh? A man sitting next to Winzy, with his hands clasped tightly, watched intently, evaluating. I thought His Highness Karmat would quickly claim victory. Winster commented, the third prince is also fighting desperately. Someone pushed to the brink will unleash extraordinary strength. An old woman with white hair suddenly approached while Winster was wondering, could it be that the elder wizard has used some trick? The old woman gently spoke, ho, it seems that the people here have very good eyes, huh? The old lady bowed, placing her hand on her chest. If it's not too much trouble, could you all explain the current situation to me? She explained, actually, my eyesight is a bit blurry. I've asked others, but they all refused, haha. Winster quickly stood up and invited her, then please sit over here. Winster actively said, I will explain everything to you. He stared at the old lady, puzzled, thinking, what's this? Did I unconsciously use honorifics with a servant? Winster stared at her unblinkingly, a drop of sweat falling as he suspected, this person is definitely not ordinary. The old woman smiled kindly at Winster. Winster gave his seat to the old lady while he stood behind, watching her every move intently. Winster thought, first, I need to stay close and observe. He said, right now, His Highness Karmat is gaining the upper hand. The old lady happily replied, oh really? Is that so? The person sitting next to Winster helplessly turned away, thinking, this person again, pretending not to know anything. He explained, even if His Highness is gaining the upper hand, prolonged battles are not good. What do you youngsters think? Namuel gave his opinion, I don't know. The situation seems a bit strange now. He attentively observed the two red-eyed wolves staring at each other as if about to tear each other apart. He assessed, even though His Highness Llewellyn, in his haste, has unleashed extraordinary strength, he shouldn't be able to maintain that power for long. But look, at this moment, in this form, it's as if he doesn't feel pain at all. Llewellyn still burns with the fire of battle, his eyes flashing with terrifying hatred. Reynal, in the form of a black crow perched on a spectator's seat, watched from start to finish, finding it all very strange. She recalled that no matter how powerful an animal is, the moment it gets injured, even a little, it would reflexively flinch. But now, Llewellyn seemed to lack even the basic survival instincts, let alone feel pain. Moreover, not only is that strange, but every time Llewellyn attacks and bites Karmat, Karmat's body would shiver and instinctively curl up. I've seen that reaction before, it's definitely not a simple reaction to pain. Recalling her previous life studies about beasts, she remembered learning about handling escaped beasts. Though it's painful to watch animals in pain, she couldn't deal with them without any knowledge. Among the types she had seen, most involved tranquilizers, but beyond that, electric stun guns were also used. Analyzing Karmat's bodily reactions, Reynal resembled those of an animal shocked by electricity. Reynal was startled, thinking, could it be? The white-haired elder sitting quite near the black crow, Reynal, had been observing her closely for a while. The elder smiled brightly, thinking, oh ho, this one is smarter than I thought. I came here today for a different reason, but watching this one is interesting. Thus, Reynal unknowingly caught the white-haired elder's attention without knowing why. The sounds of the two wolves fighting and growling grew increasingly fierce. One of the wolves suddenly pounced, pinning the other down. In a flash, the wolf's eyes lit up, and Karmat exclaimed, you've been cursed, Llewellyn. With loud thuds, the two wolves continued their fight. From now, it can be guessed that it's a magic that enhances physical strength and speed while eliminating pain and fear. A crackling sound passed through one of the wolves, with blue electric sparks running across its body. It was just a fleeting magic. The wolf gradually accumulated magic from its body and transferred it into its bite. After a few swooshing sounds, Karmat had predicted he would use this despicable trick, but he hadn't expected it to be this vile and cunning. Using a type of magic that is not apparent from the outside, not the strongest type of magic but enough to balance the battle's position. After being hit by the magical attacks from the other wolf, the wolf started to feel the pain as magical light flickered around its body, reducing its fighting strength. Moreover, he couldn't predict when the magic would lose its effect. Now, he could only remain calm and follow Namuel's advice. Marquis Namuel spoke up, saying, as a principal, I can't give direct advice. But if you want to know how to deal with animals under dark magic or curses, I can tell you a few things since it's not related to the Bacchus's ceremony. The Marquis snapped his fingers and said, "First, if you don't know what kind of magic the opponent is under, you should lure him into using up his energy and strength early. If you attack with full force from the start, he will retaliate with hidden magic, only making things worse later." The wolf was now enveloped in a red aura, its eyes suddenly glowing fiercely as it bared its sharp fangs, raising its head and letting out ferocious roars. Especially if the opponent's strength is tainted and cursed, the worst-case scenario is when it's because of a curse. Marquis Namuel warned, if possible, avoid touching the opponent's blood. Marquis Sammet agreed, saying, "I know it's difficult to avoid during a fight, but change strategies to minimize contact with that blood." Karmat thought, although I know this is not simple, in a battle, one loss could be fatal. The two wolves exploded with power, each carrying a different kind of strength. At this moment, Marquis was sitting on the edge of his seat, incredibly anxious, thinking, I hope Prince Karmat listens to my advice. But it was clear that just sitting here without knowing what was happening was driving him crazy. Suddenly, the Marquis stood up, looking toward the Council of Elders, pondering, the opponent is a seasoned magician who has spent years collecting magic. The Marquis continued, certainly, he wouldn't use loose, simple spells. Even if caught, proving cheating would be the elder magician's responsibility. The magician's eyes suddenly turned vicious, emitting magical auras. He continued, even presenting perfect evidence is useless. So the only strategy now is to trust in Prince Karmat's victory. In the worst case, Galenus thought deeply, the Emperor might have to pray to higher authorities than the elder magician. He pondered whether helping Prince Llewellyn was a decision made by the Bacchus alone or by all the elder magicians. A figure appeared with the sound of wind, if the leader of the royal magicians could reveal the truth, but that person doesn't show up easily and lives in seclusion, making it almost a gamble on one's life. Galenus clenched his hands tightly, thinking, if so, I need some basis, even just a little. The sound of a crow echoed in the sky, and a crow, from who knows where, flew over, flapping its wings and cawing continuously. It caught Galenus's attention, reminding him about the magician's tricks in the battle. Galenus called out Reynald's name. The crow tried to convey its message, cawing urgently, Llewellyn is using some kind of electric magic, stop him. Marquis Sammet, asking from his seat, commented, is it inconvenient to sit for too long? The crow, almost going crazy, thought, crazy, the male lead doesn't understand animal language? Can't transform into a human now? The crow used body language to convey its message to Marquis Sammet. Namuel, please understand me, Llewellyn is using electric magic, stop him. Namuel seemed to understand what the crow was trying to say, thinking, does this crow know something? Namuel recalled how smart and unique it seemed before. The knight, recognizing the signals, realized, are you trying to stop the boss's ceremony? After receiving a definitive nod from the crow thought, thankfully, someone understands. The crow continued cawing, if he keeps getting shocked like this, no matter how strong Karmat is, he'll collapse. The knight thought, although I don't understand everything, the third prince is definitely using dirty tricks. Fired up, he wanted to rush into the arena immediately to save his master. The knight shouted, then we can't just sit back anymore. Pause the battle now. Fortunately, Namuel called out, wait a minute, Prince Karmat, if we do that now, we'll be at a disadvantage. Karmat, worried, couldn't wait, and the Marquis quickly intervened, calm down, believe in that crow too much, alright, I apologize to the crow you adore. But anyway, we can't just send out the troops recklessly. This made Galenus furious, protecting Reynald and shouting, what dead crow, call her properly, Lady Reynald. That made the new maid ask the senior butler, what should someone like me do when superiors disagree? He laughed and said, you just sit tight and wait. Suddenly, the referee spoke up, and everyone was worried about Prince Karmat. The maid clenched her fists and asked the butler, what department in the palace is that from? I don't think I've seen it before. The butler replied, oh, the subordinates can be quite noisy too, huh? The new maid anxiously asked, if something happens, can you tell me? Suddenly, everyone looked down at the arena when they heard a noise. The sight of Prince Karmat pinning Prince Llewellyn to the ground appeared before everyone. One of the wolf's paws was on Prince Llewellyn's neck, restraining him without shedding any blood. If he can do that, he can win without drawing any blood, right? Galenus thought. No need to pause the match anymore. Galenus considered, even if magic suppresses pain, if he can't breathe, his strength will soon deplete. The crow sighed in relief, thinking, thank goodness it ended cleanly before anything big happened. Suddenly, the wolf returned to human form, causing everyone present to exclaim, what? He turned back into a human? Does that mean he's forfeited the match? A wizard spoke up, if you can't win with the magic I gave you, then there's one more way. Suddenly, someone said, Your Majesty, I want to report cheating in this sacred match. How do you know that, Marquis Namuel? The crow frowned, thinking, a person who is both a royal and a wizard has shamelessly passed magic to Prince Karmat to win at all costs. How can he be this despicable? Gonos laughed, to prove this according to the rules, to prove what he said, let's have the senior wizards examine it. A dark aura emitted from Llewellyn, revealing an evil, cunning smile. Everything is perfect. Although I was a bit weak at the end, it doesn't matter at all. The wolf faced the person in the black cloak. Anyway, I'll surely win this match. The women in black cloaks whispered to each other, I don't see any special magic at all. Me neither. Even if Marquis Namuel is a high-level wizard, he can't fool our eyes. This conversation was a strategy of the senior wizards to make everyone believe the judgment was fair. The person in the grey cloak asked, What do you think? The truth lies with him. The senior wizard Buzzcourt removed his hood and said, My view is a bit different from everyone else's. Everyone in the stands looked shocked and amazed. As you all know, I specialize in studying demons. Buzzcourt continued, and the truth is, I have used my profound knowledge to defeat all sorts of demons and monsters. Buzzcourt raised his hand and said, With that authority, I can confirm one thing. First, Prince Karmat has awakened dark magic and exploited it. Buzzcourt stood before the wolf, both emanating an aura. Buzzcourt asserted immediately upon seeing Karmat, he is the one who cheated in this duel. The crow frowned and shouted, What nonsense is he spouting? Even if it's fake, there should be a limit. Has his brain gone fuzzy from studying demons too much, making him say provocative things? The crow thought, that old man is cunning indeed. Buzzcourt smirked and provided compelling evidence. Has no one noticed anything strange? Typically, royal powers awaken before maturity, but Prince Karmat gained his power after maturing. His strength and level are not exceptional. Not long ago, he even disappeared for a while. With a gleeful look, he concluded, So my conclusion is that Prince Karmat faked his attack, pretended to disappear, and used help from Namuel to increase his strength. Namuel hurriedly defended, I'm innocent. When Prince Karmat returned, I handed over the Coven Rock myself. So where would I get dark magic to help? Buzzcourt retorted, Oh, you even kept the item that the prince couldn't find. Stroking his beard, he thought, this joke is interesting. Without a witness, who will believe you? The other wizards whispered, Clearly, I searched for it diligently for so long and couldn't find it. Yet, it came back to the prince as if to encourage him to take revenge. Namuel shouted, It's just a coincidence. He added, Lord Bellows, you don't have evidence for your claims either. Buzzcourt argued back, Are you saying the senior wizards forged evidence? I've lived long enough to hear such nonsense. Namuel thought, At this rate, everything will fall apart. There's no way around it. Namuel boldly rushed into the arena, shocking everyone. Galenus shouted, Marquis Namuel. The maid clenched her fists in fear and asked, Marquis, what are you doing? But instead of causing chaos, Namuel knelt before the king and said, Your Majesty, Prince Karmat is completely innocent. I swear on my life. So please summon the royal head wizard and organize a serious investigation. Wait, not only did Marquis Namuel act rashly, but also the knight Galenus immediately jumped down to show his loyalty. It is my duty to protect the prince, not for the Marquis to act alone. Galenus boldly stated, Your Majesty, I swear on my life too. But this crow is not just any bird, it is someone the prince loves dearly. Seeing this, Karmat felt deeply moved, as he realized that his own negligence had allowed the enemy's dirty tricks to succeed. Galenus and Namuel went to such lengths for him. This time, I failed again. I didn't anticipate the enemy being this vile. Buzzcourt stroked his chin, eyes calculating. How amusing. Even senior wizards can't be met casually, yet you dare to act on your own. So you've given up on defense and resorted to such lowly tricks? Finally, the king ordered the chief wizard to come and resolve the situation, thinking, I'd rather transform and deal with this myself. The king continued, he said it like that. What do you think, Mirrodin?